Hey everyone, Firescale Audiobooks here. If there's a novel you'd love to hear more of, you can support us on Patreon or Ko-fi. Depending on your tier, I'll make extra parts just for the stories you're most excited about. Usually I can only upload 4 to 5 parts of each novel, but with your support, we can go beyond that. And of course, don't forget to hit subscribe. It helps more than you know.
The sound came from beside her ear, and the wind that blew made Liu Lion's skin crawl with goosebumps, as if a cold reptile was flicking its tongue down her back. Liu Lion looked at Chu Qing in horror. The latter's calmness startled her. Coming to her senses, she forced a smile and asked, "When did you buy this lantern?" "I bought it yesterday, otherwise it would be too dark at night." "Really? We definitely need to buy one, but why not get a street light too?" "Streetlights are expensive." The two remained silent. I walked out of the gate of Bashan Cemetery in silence. Stepping through the massive iron gate, Liu Lion finally breathed a sigh of relief for some reason. She stood at the door, turned around to look at Chu Qing, who was still smiling behind her, and finally Liu Lion couldn't help but ask, "Chu Qing, do you know King Chu Jiang?" As soon as she asked the question, Liu Lion regretted it. However, Chu Qing, without even thinking, smiled and nodded. "Of course I know." Meeting Liu Lion's astonished, shocked, fearful, and confused gaze, Chu Qing blinked. He's one of the Yama kings in mythology, the second of the 10 kings of hell in charge of the underwater hell. All the drowned monsters belonging to the water are under the jurisdiction of King Chujiang. Liu Lion's gaze shifted instantly from its previous complexity, and she forced a smile. "I see you really are very knowledgeable. I've always been interested in these things. Otherwise, I wouldn't have come here to work, right? When I was in school, I occasionally saw some ancient murals, including murals of the 10 kings of hell, and I even tried to draw them a few times." Chu Qing said. Liu Lion opened her mouth as if she wanted to say something more, but Chu Qing interrupted her. "All right, you don't look too well. Go home and rest. If you have any questions or encounter any problems, feel free to come to me." Liu Lion nodded, seemingly forgetting that she had come specifically to warn Chu Qing to be careful. He watched Liu Lion leave. Chu Qing was just about to return to her small house. The familiar roar of an engine filled the air, and the bright yellow SF-90 drove up from the distant highway. And Ryuxu opened the car door carrying breakfast in her hand. Who was that cow just now? Chu Qing glanced at the woman. "Watch your words and actions." And Ryuxu pouted, then followed Chu Qing into the inconspicuous, even somewhat dilapidated guardhouse. "Aching, I'll pay you to renovate this place. It's really uncomfortable living in such a rundown place." "We'll talk about it later." After taking a sip of the egg drop soup, Chu Qing asked, "Shouldn't there be results from the investigation by now?" When the conversation turned to business, and Ryuxu nodded. The Yin god of wealth was indeed given to the Lin family half a month before the incident. This person is also the biggest beneficiary besides me after the Lin family's misfortune. The second largest shareholder of Senmu Group, and also the chairman of Gaojian Company in the provincial capital, is a behemoth not only in Liucheng and Xingcheng, the provincial capital, but also throughout the entire Central Plains province. This statue of the god of wealth was given to Lin Yuancheng by Chairman Gao Hong about 2 weeks before Lin's accident. Meanwhile, in the past 2 days, Gao Hong and Gao Jian's company have been acquiring shares in Senmu Group. Chu Qing nodded. It seems this Chairman Gao has some capable people around him. Based on the predictions and calculations of the previous life, the clues appeared about half a month to a month before the Age of Terror officially arrived. It seems that once this Yin god of wealth encountered problems, it was discovered immediately and brought here. Thinking of this, Chu Qing looked at Ryuxu. "Your current situation is probably not easy either, is it?" And Ryuxu nodded. "That day I met Chairman Gao, and he bluntly stated that he wanted to acquire the shares held by the Lin family, father and son, in the Senmu Group. And his offer was very low." Tusk. Chu Qing smiled. After mastering some extraordinary power, some people always think that they can arbitrarily rise above others. Of course, even he himself was no exception. This is the biological instinct of survival of the fittest. "All right, I know what you're thinking. When that Chairman Gao shows up again, make it clear to him that he and the person he relies on should come to me." "Okay, when he comes next time, I'll tell him." "Brother Qing, there's one more thing." At this point, Ryuxu looked at Chu Qing with expectant eyes. Chu Qing naturally knew what this woman was thinking. In her previous life, Ryuxu was able to become a ghost master after witnessing Chu Qing kill Lin Hengshan with his blood eyes. During this period, he has been so well-behaved, delivering meals on time, giving money whenever asked, taking over the Bashan cemetery, and even arranging for its renovation. In the end, it all stems from his curiosity and longing for this kind of power. Chu Qing was never afraid of ambitious people. Ambition was a good thing. So after thinking for a moment, he said, I know what you're thinking, and I'm telling you in advance that wielding this power comes at a price. Of course, you probably won't care about any of that. Come find me tonight at midnight. Chu Qing's eyes flickered as she came up with a good idea, and Ryuxu's eyes gleamed with an unusual light and she abruptly stood up. Really? Seeing that Chu Qing's expression hadn't changed, he quickly wrapped his arms around her neck and gave her a quick kiss. Brother Qing, I knew it, you still love me. Chu Qing smiled. Love. This emotion was far too extravagant for King Chujiang, who had fought in hell for 10 years. However, and Ryuxu in front of us is indeed a good test subject. Indeed, if possible, Chu Qing wanted to see if Ryuxu could be the first user to experience the death apartment after it was summoned. It remains to be seen whether Ryuxu will be able to stand out from the crowd. In their previous lives, those ghost tamers who emerged from the death apartment not only possessed a wide array of bizarre techniques, but also a considerable number of funerary artifacts. He also wanted to see if anything would change if he took control of the death apartment, and Ryuxu was the best test subject for him. Okay, go ahead and get busy. And Ryuxu saw Baba off. Chu Qing refocused her attention on the laptop and returned to the House of Strange Tales. This time, instead of continuing to browse those posts that were either uninformative or not very meaningful, he opened the channel, skillfully switched between countless IP addresses, set up a VPN, and then typed a post in the input box. A bizarre survival guide. A terrifying era is coming. Learn basic survival skills in this bizarre world. Original poster King Chujiang. Viewing price 100 points. Haha, who posted this? It's so realistic, even including things like ghostly fate and weird themes. It's really interesting. Shit, this guy is telling the truth. I really did encounter a terrifying and eerie thing in the United States. It was a doll. Hey buddy from the US upstairs. Looks like you've encountered the kind of supernatural spirit the original poster was talking about. No, are you guys planning to turn this forum into a shelter-themed one? Interesting, count me in. Oh, isn't it? 100 points can be earned in most countries for just 1 yuan, or by recruiting a few people and completing a few tasks. Therefore, after Chu Qing's high-quality long post appeared, many people clicked on it. However, in the beginning, most of them were just people who clicked in by chance and wanted to have some fun. However, as the post went viral and reached the homepage, special accounts quickly appeared and their replies were quite intriguing. What do you know, King Chujiang? Are you also from the Dragon Kingdom? Your Excellency King Chujiang, do you have a contact method? May I discuss this further with you via dialogue? I've sent you a private message, please reply. I have a question. How should humanity fight against these damned things? Friend, I am Count of Purgatory, a director of the Hell Society. I sincerely invite you to join the Hell Society as its representative in the Dragon Kingdom. Details of the benefits of joining have been sent to you through the backend. Please consider it carefully. No, why are these people upstairs acting like it's the real deal? The Hell Society, what kind of organization is that? And they even have a representative in Daxia. Oh, isn't it? Seeing this, Chu Qing also became interested and opened the backend. Sure enough, it didn't take long for my inbox to be overflowing with 99 plus private messages. This also shows that the House of Ghost Stories has indeed become very popular worldwide. Perhaps it was for this reason that the House of Strange Tales was later able to become the so-called official forum. The first private message Chu Qing opened was from that person who claimed to be a council member of the Hell Society. He actually knew about this Hell Society. Although he had never heard of this damned Earl of Purgatory, the Hell Society was quite famous, and there were even rumors that the founder of this House of Strange Tales had connections to the Hell Society. Of course, once the House of Ghost Stories became nothing more than a collection of ghost stories, the question of whether or not there was a founder became irrelevant. The Hell Society, which came later, was a demon-controlling organization that was quite famous worldwide in its previous life. Its strength was almost comparable to that of some small country-level demon-controlling forces. I never imagined these guys already had this much power before the Age of Terror even arrived. However, in his previous life, he had little contact with these people, and the Dragon Kingdom was an area that the Hell Society had never entered. As for the so-called treatment and conditions offered, they are not worth mentioning at all. Even now, even if these people know about the existence of the supernatural, they still mostly try to win people over with worldly money. This means nothing to him. However, considering the immense power of the Hell Society in his previous life, an entity that even ordinary first-rank king-level ghost controllers were unwilling to antagonize. Chu Qing still replied. As for the rest, they mostly asked about specific details of the strange events. After glancing at them a few times, Chu Qing casually answered a few. Just as he was about to leave, his gaze suddenly sharpened. In his post, which had already received hundreds of replies, a line of Huxia characters clearly caught his eye. Dear poster, I'm currently in Xingcheng, Central Daxia Province, and something strange has happened. After I came out of the bathroom, it felt like I was the only person left in the entire city. I'm so scared. Chu Qing looked at the person's message and decisively opened their private message. Tell me about your current situation. Wazir op help me. Don't rush, tell me in detail what happened. I really don't know. I usually like these kinds of supernatural things, and last night I saw some kind of boundary-breaking ritual. They put candles and incense in front of the bathroom mirror at midnight, and after midnight, they said you could enter another world. Then I tried it, but I didn't find another world. Instead, I was all alone in the whole world. Wazia help. Chu Qing's eyelids twitched as she looked at the reply in the chat box. The whole breaking the boundary ritual is pure nonsense. However, mirrors were definitely one of the most terrifying things in a time of terror. During the 20 years of the previous era of terror, in addition to the secret realms, there were some special, permanent, and eerie worlds. One of them is the mirror world. Mirror ghosts, all sorts of bizarre phenomena based on the principle of light refraction, exist in mirrors, forming a world almost identical to the real world within the reflection. Clearly, this guy in front of me has foolishly entered the mirror realm. But, although the mirror realm is dangerous, it's actually quite valuable. Putting everything else aside, that large piece might be left as a kind of eerie trap to capture mirror-like creatures. Furthermore, it seems that some of the puzzle pieces for funerary objects also require fragments from the mirror realm. Most importantly, it's not far from me. The distance between Liucheng and Xingcheng, the provincial capital, is not far, only about 100 kilometers. Such a distance, even during a time of terror, would not have been difficult to cover. Thinking of this, Chu Qing no longer hesitated and asked directly, "Send me your name and address, I'll come over when I have time. But my suggestion is, after midnight tonight, go back to that mirror and try the same thing again, see if you can get out." "Okay, boss, my name is Zhang He, and I'm currently in the Yulong residential area of Xingcheng." After noting this down, Chu Qing browsed the rest of the posts on this website of strange tales. It has to be said that with the increase in bizarre events over the past month, even people from Daxia have bypassed the Great Firewall to post on this website of strange tales. Upon closer inspection, Chu Qing indeed discovered numerous strange events occurring within the Dragon Kingdom. However, most of them didn't appeal to him. Its potential is relatively average, but that makes sense when you think about it. Even in its nascent stage, a creature like the Blood-Eyed Dragon Lord can be truly terrifying and bizarre, taking a life the instant the rules are triggered. There's practically no chance for anyone to escape. Those extraordinary and powerful monsters, few of whom escaped, naturally have fewer people posting about them online. Thinking of this, Chu Qing glanced at the sky outside, which had darkened again, and finally stood up, letting out a breath. It was still those two white porcelain bowls. Chu Qing calmly raised the knife once more. This is the third time, although it was only a small half bowl. Bleeding like this for 2 consecutive days was indeed a bit too much to bear. But it should be about time, right? According to Dingzai, he must have fully summoned the blood-red words in the death apartment around 3 months into the terrifying era. Using the method left behind in blood, they probably captured 5 or 6 of these eerie creatures. This number is already quite large. Dingzai is indeed no ordinary person. The gravedigger's hunt for the supernatural is almost always a dance on the edge of a knife, a battle with death. Only by provoking the supernatural and drawing it into his tomb can the grave ghost be subdued. He doesn't have Chu Qing's methods. This is Chu Qing's third time now. Although it's less frequent, he's much better prepared, mixing his own blood with yin energy. It makes it more likely to attract strange occurrences. Tick-tock, tick-tock. Drops of crimson liquid flowed back into the bowl, the yin energy, water, and cinnabar slowly mixing together. This time, Chu Qing didn't continue using her fingers, but instead picked up a calligraphy brush from the side. New blood-red characters slowly imprinted themselves onto the glass door. Name, Huang Hong Half-Ghost. Grade, unranked 9th ranks. Location, Los Angeles. Objective, investigate the suspicious activities surrounding Huang Hong, eliminate or subdue them, and simultaneously kill or capture Huang Hong. Commentary, who says demons and monsters corrupt people's hearts. The wickedness of the human heart surpasses even the power of ghosts and evil spirits. Edict of King Chu Qing of Chujiang. After writing all this, Chu Qing slowly stood up. It was getting dark earlier and earlier. At 5 o'clock, even in winter, when the sun would not set, it was already pitch black for some reason. This night is the hunting ground where hunters and prey vie for supremacy. Quack! Under the cover of darkness in the inky sky, the piercing cawing of crows rang out. Its body, like that of a hawk, circled low in the sky. Below, atop the tall water tower, a figure crouched. Green eyes, glowing in the darkness, stared intently at the children playing below. There were still slightly dried bloodstains around her mouth, and bits of minced meat remained on her fingernails and the 40-centimeter-long cleaver tucked at her waist. It smells so good. It smells so good. Why does it smell so good? Come on, come up here and play. Come quick, Auntie will give you toys. Drops of drool were already dripping from the corners of her mouth, and her eyes were fixed on the children playing below the water tower, who were clearly from a nearby school. However, just as she was about to lose control, the figure circling in the air suddenly swooped down and landed beside her. Gaga. She suddenly looked at the black crow. Honey, you mean that damn thing finally came out of that hellhole? Gaga. All right, all right. But honey, don't you like these little rascals? I remember that little b asterisk 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 d. Didn't you like it a lot when you ate it? I know you don't like eating live animals. Don't worry, I'll do it for you first, then we'll split it up, okay? Gaga. What, you still think that guy deserves to die more, don't you? Yeah, that guy deserves to die the most. He finally got out of that turtle shell. Kill that brat. Let's go now, kill that brat, eat his eyeballs, and then come back for these little bastards. Gaga. An indescribable chill permeated the night. Previously, Chu Ching would travel by car or taxi. He really didn't take a proper stroll around the cemetery, which he considered his own territory. However, it is clear that there are almost no supporting facilities. Apart from a crematorium that also appears to be abandoned, there isn't even a small shop nearby. The sides were completely hairless. The nearest small supermarket is almost a kilometer away, and even the nearest residential building is more than 500 meters away. The former Bashan office was even 2 kilometers away. Here, even if someone dies, it probably wouldn't be noticed immediately, right? Apart from the streetlights on both sides of the main road, the road was pitch black and silent, with only the cool breeze blowing by. The dim streetlights seemed unable to dispel the gloom of the night. Only the crescent moon shone with an unstoppable brightness from the horizon. Fortunately, Chu Ching had other preparations. Thinking of this, Chu Ching looked down at the large red lantern she was carrying. The head inside the lantern seemed to sense his gaze, revealing a smile that appeared extremely terrifying to others, but to Chu Ching, it seemed like a fawning smile. Chu Ching's lips curled up and she responded with a smile. Then he took out the black umbrella again and slowly opened it. However, yesterday, I carried this umbrella to avoid being blinded by the light under the lamp. Today, it's for others. Instead of heading towards the city, he walked out of Bashan Cemetery and headed into the wilderness between the cemetery and the city. A figure. In the darkness of the night, dressed in a black trench coat, holding a black umbrella and bathed in moonlight, carrying a blood-red lantern in his hand. Walking slowly, it seemed as if they were leisurely savoring the solitude and tranquility under the moonlight. The moonlight became the spotlight for this figure on the stage. It accurately hit the only protagonist on this stage. No, it's not the only one, because in the next instant the cold moonlight overhead was obscured and blocked by a figure with outstretched wings. Then beneath those wings, the figure grasping at sharp claws in the boundless darkness bathed in moonlight raised the cleaver in one hand, seemingly descending from the sky, and slashed fiercely at the figure concealed by the black umbrella. Like a snake-catching eagle swooping down from the sky and launching a sudden attack. It's a pity. This beast with outstretched wings is not the invincible snake-catching eagle. The figure walking across the boundless wilderness was not some bluffing little venomous snake. He was a true demon, his gaping maw ready to be attacked by eagles. The prey often doesn't know who the real prey is. Even with its blade chipped and worn, the incredibly sharp cleaver still shone brilliantly in the moonlight. It also reflected that, under the darkness of night, it seemed that no one could see this scene at all. Before anyone knew it, the figure had raised its head. In the moonlight, in the reflection of the cleaver, 2 figures in the sky were clearly visible, and the man's disdainful smile was clearly visible. His gaze was far too calm compared to the woman's frenzy. The calmness of the situation left even the woman, who had tried this infallible tactic countless times, momentarily stunned. Because the next moment, it was as if the curtain of a movie had been suddenly drawn back. The previously concealed blood-red light was suddenly released. That ray of light, it's as if everything has slowed down. Then the cleaver actually passed right through the red light barrier. Even Chu Ching, who was among them, did not suffer the slightest attack, The darkest place is under the lamp. This red light can ignore all physical attacks except those of the supernatural, let alone a knife. Even if someone were to carry a rocket launcher and fire it this way from a distance, it would be completely useless. When faced with the bizarre, technological weapons pose no threat whatsoever. They might even become an asset to the enemy. For example, right now, if he wanted to, Chu Qing could snatch the knife in an instant and deliver a fatal blow to the thing in front of him. However, such a death is far too cheap compared to the woman before him. No, the humanoid creature that cannot be described as human. For those living in this world, death is liberation. Chu Qing's gaze was icy as he casually tossed the lantern with the human head into the sky. A vast expanse of crimson enveloped this wilderness. The woman, who had been so ferocious and crazed, fell to the ground with a thud, her eyes vacant as she stared at the lanterns with human heads in the air. Faced with the latter's power to control rules, this madwoman who hadn't completely turned into a ghost had absolutely no chance of resistance. Chu Qing ignored it. Instead, he slowly turned his gaze to the equally bewildered black crows in the sky. His gaze was bloodshot, cold as ice. In this terrifying era, all sorts of bizarre things happen. Previously, there were humanoid spirits like the faceless demon. The physical form of the yin wealth god is eerie, resembling a physical object. Then there are places like the death apartment, which are completely devoid of any tangible form, resembling a cursed rule. And the House of Strange Tales is bizarrely just a virtual website. Similarly, there are also bizarre occurrences that manifest as animalistic physical characteristics. The black cat that Chu Qing named Xuan Tong has the potential to become a special and eerie demon in the future. The one before them, though also existing in the form of an animal and also a bizarre prototype, is fundamentally different from Xuan Tong. Black Crow, grade ungraded. Category ghouls. Lifespan in the living world, 20 days. Lifespan in the dead world, 19 days. Rule unranked items cannot possess rules. Night patrol abilities. Enhanced vision in the dark and increased awareness of danger. Ghoul status can devour the corpses of living beings, gaining additional yin life points. However, both yin and yang life points are consumed daily. Promotion requirements. Unknowns. Note what a weak thing, human, you're making such a fuss over something so weak. I'm starting to doubt your abilities. Chu Qing smiled, completely ignoring Zhu Tong's sarcastic remarks, just as he had guessed. The consumption of large numbers of corpses and the almost pickled corpse-like stench emanating from Huang Hong. Besides zombies, there was only this kind of eeriness to be found. Ghoul. They are also known as street cleaners. This is considered a rather unique category within the realm of the bizarre. Ghouls' abilities and rules are often quite ordinary, so they often follow powerful and eerie beings. Eat some leftovers. Clearly, this is why Huang Hong previously relied on the faceless ghost of Beishan Cemetery to feed this ghoul. However, after the faceless ghost was subdued by Chu Qing, Huang Hong, who spent day and night with this ghoul, finally could no longer suppress the darkness and madness in his heart and completely became a half-ghost, just like a ghost. To Chu Qing's slight surprise, this ghoul wasn't even at the entry-level stage. It had only just begun to take on a bizarre, rudimentary form. Of course, judging from this situation, it's about time. I must say this thing does have value and significance. Black Crow's ability to patrol is indeed crucial. Thinking of this, Chu Qing's blood-red pupils finally locked onto the Black Crow that was being controlled by the human head lantern. Gaga gaga gagas. A scream of utter terror rang out. The sound was so piercing. It seemed to see the most terrifying and horrifying thing in the world. It wanted to flap its wings and escape from here to escape the man's blood-red gaze. However, it cannot do that. The slightest movement seemed to freeze the blood in his body. The yin energy that had been condensed from devouring countless corpses instantly transformed into a prison, firmly controlling him. Watching this Black Crow go from frantic struggle to gradually quieting down and accepting its fate, Chu Qing smiled and extended his hand. Black Crow's body slowly descended from the air onto his palm. They were so careful, as if afraid that their sharp claws would pierce the human's skin. Chu Qing withdrew her hand and carefully examined the object in front of her. The feathers, as black as silk, gleamed eerily in the night, and the pupils held fear and trembling. Even wild beasts, even primitive monsters lacking much self-awareness, are afraid of death. Chu Qing slowly extended her other hand, stroked the Black Crow's feathers, and thought for a moment before saying, "Want to know how to become a true weirdo? Gaga." Perhaps the Black Crow couldn't quite understand the meaning behind Chu Qing's words. Its beast-like mind was simply trying to please the powerful and incredibly strange human in front of it. That's all. Chu Qing, however, did not care and instead smiled. Before reaching a certain level, the bizarre cannot form true power of rules. ghouls are relatively inferior species among the bizarre. The requirements for advancement are also simpler and more straightforward. Once you raise your yin lifespan to match your yang lifespan, you can complete the advancement to the next grade during normal consumption. Gaga. The black crow looked at Chu Qing with some confusion, not understanding the meaning of the being before it. It was just trembling. Chu Qing stared intently at the black crow before her with her blood-red eyes. Little one, follow me from now on, and I can help you advance to the next rank right now, how about it? Gaga. A piercing cry rang out, and this time the creature seemed to truly understand the meaning of the words, its cry carrying a hint of pleading. Chu Qing, however, did not believe it. Nowadays, the strange creatures he has captured, the yin god of wealth and the faceless ghost, needless to be mentioned, these two things are immobile. The lanterns with human heads were his main responsibility. The intimidating power of the blood-red eyes was not enough to completely subdue a strange creature that didn't possess much intelligence. To completely subdue, conquer, or even control these strange entities, one must become a member of the Underworld. Fortunately, it won't be long before that step comes. Just then, a piercing and terrified scream finally rang out. Zod. Chu Qing turned her head to look. Before anyone knew it, the lantern of human heads had appeared above Huang Hong's head. This woman, whose mind was permeated with the aura of corpses and yin energy, seemed to finally understand what fear truly meant at this moment. Her neck was bound by invisible tentacles of yin energy, firmly connected to the lantern of human heads. Inside the lantern, a blood-soaked human head stared at her with venomous hatred. This immense fear completely dispelled the confusion I had previously felt, as if I were blinded by something I didn't know. Chu Qing didn't care at all. Instead, he calmly looked at the human head lantern with his bloodshot eyes. All right, put her down now. The lantern with human heads swayed gently, seemingly unwilling to give up its easily attainable prey. A cold glint flashed in Chu Qing's eyes, and his blood eyes activated instantly, maintaining the effect of an eye for an eye. The lantern of human heads was immediately under his complete control. A howling mountain wind blew by. Huang Hong fell to the ground with a thud. The intense physical pain could not mask the fear in my heart. She didn't even glance at the blood-red gaze beside her. At this moment she had only one thought: escape. Leave this place, leave this person. No, that's not human, he's definitely not human. At this moment, Huang Hong, whose mind had long been clouded, finally understood a very basic question. How come this guy was able to stay in Beishan Cemetery for several days without any problems? She originally thought that the terrifying presence in Beishan Cemetery was gone, or something else entirely. Now she understood everything. The creature before me is a being countless times more terrifying than the horrifying ghost in that cemetery. Escape, ignoring the excruciating pain in her leg bone that should have been split open, she looked at Black Crow in a panic. Baby, baby. Gaga. The crows seemed to be calling from the sky again. Huang Hong breathed a sigh of relief. No matter what, no matter when, her baby is still someone you can trust completely. It was precisely because of Black Crow that she was able to have the confidence to escape under such circumstances, to escape the control of this devil, this demon. Finally, the sound of the Black Crow grew closer and closer. Huang Hong reached out, wanting to grab Black Crow's foot as before. Flight, that will always be our greatest advantage. Air superiority has become the most important guarantee for both offense and defense. Thinking of this, Huang Hong felt less afraid of the thing in the wilderness. So what if the abilities are bizarre and terrifying? Once she leads her darlings and feasts on more corpses, there will surely be a day when justice is served. Thinking of this, she couldn't help but turn her head back to look again. The blood-red lantern, somehow, had returned to the man's hands. What came into her view was a pair of bloodshot, disordered eyes beneath the black umbrella that had been raised again. That was also the last thing she ever saw with her own eyes in her life. Because in the next instant, a pitch-black, all-too-familiar claw appeared before her eyes. Then, the claw that had carried her across the skies above Lo's angels this time didn't grab her hand. Instead, it pierced her eye socket. Crimson blood splattered, it splashed across the moonlit wilderness. Ah, ouch. The piercing howl sounded like the lament of a wild beast. It resounded across the boundless wilderness. Between the black and white, bloodshot eyes, now appeared from Huang Hong's eye sockets onto the Black Crow's sharp claws. Then it gently tossed it up, caught it in its mouth with its jet-black crow beak and swallowed it. Chu Qing stretched out his hand, and the Black Crow obediently came into his palm. Then Black Crow perched on Chu Qing's arm and shoulder, coldly looking at Huang Hong, who was howling like a dying beast, and straightened its feathers. It was as if they were doing something trivial. Chu Qing nodded in satisfaction and tossed a snow-white piece of paper money to Black Crow. The latter swallowed it whole, and the yin energy emanating from its body slowly spread out. The black umbrella was raised again, and the blood-red lanterns illuminated the path they had come from. The moonlight shone over the wilderness, leaving only Huang Hong, seemingly driven utterly mad, desperately fleeing in the opposite direction, wailing as she recounted the fate of the loser after the curtain fell on the stage. She seemed to be clinging to the hope that she was still alive. Little did they know that anything that straddles the line between humans and ghosts doesn't even qualify to be food. 8 p.m. on September 2nd. Los Angeles Inspectorate Criminal Division. Even though it was pitch black, the atmosphere here was still bustling with activity. Captain Wang looked exhausted, not only because of the numerous cases that had recently emerged in Los Angeles, but also because of the little ant beside him whom he couldn't say anything to, nor could he scold. Xiaoliu, you were just attacked yesterday, so don't bother with the investigation. Go back and rest. I'll let you know as soon as there's any progress. Liu Lion ignored Captain Wang's good intentions. Captain Wang, what did the director and the higher-ups say? When this was brought up, Captain Wang was clearly also somewhat puzzled. Last night, such a big thing happened, and most importantly, after this young lady woke up in the hospital, she had no injuries, but she kept saying strange things. What blood-red lanterns with human heads, what King Chujiang? It's a huge mess. Someone who didn't know better might think it's possessed. Most importantly, he reported the matter, and even the director followed suit, but nothing was said. Such a major case in which countless people died naturally had to be reported to higher authorities. However, after the report was submitted, there was no reprimand from above, only one instruction. Tomorrow, an expert in this field will be coming from the capital to assist Los Angeles in solving the head lantern case and other cases in Los Angeles. Therefore, today, the main target of the department has become Huang Hong. This morning, 2 bodies were found on the outskirts of the city, and the vehicle belonging to the 2 bodies was found on the roadside. According to dashcam footage and some surveillance cameras, Huang Hong likely pretended to stop the car, got in, and then murdered the 2 people. But the crux of the problem is that none of the surveillance cameras in the area have seen any trace of her walking. It's as if she either flew over or crawled underground. Liu Lion frowned, about to say something, when a flustered sound of footsteps came rapidly from outside the department office. A figure rushed in and pushed open the door. Before the many inspectors in the department could even frown, the newcomer excitedly looked at Captain Wang. Captain Wang, Huang Hong has been caught. What and where was it caught? What happened? The newcomer's words attracted everyone's attention, including Captain Wang and Liu Lion. The latter immediately stood up anxiously and asked. The newcomer glanced at Captain Wang before saying. She was found near the outskirts of the city. Huang Hong's condition was extremely abnormal. Her leg was broken, and most importantly, both of her eyes had been gouged out, suggesting a struggle. Without a second thought, Liu Lion quickly ran towards the door. Xiaoliu, where are you going? I'm going to check on Chu Qing, he might be in danger. Captain Wang, you two keep an eye on Huang Hong. Let me know immediately if anything happens. Team leader Wang opened his mouth, watching Liu Lion run away quickly, feeling somewhat helpless with only one thought in his mind. Damn, being handsome has its advantages. If that poor boy were to become a prince consort. He shook his head, banishing these chaotic thoughts from his mind, and then quickly said, Let's go see this madwoman who won't even spare her own husband and children. In the darkness, Chu Qing, carrying a lantern, slowly returned to the outside of Beishan Cemetery. He was unaware that Huang Hong was apprehended by the inspectors almost immediately after leaving. At this moment, he was on his way home, feeling relaxed and at ease. On his shoulder, however, seemed like a huge block of ice, growing ever more piercing. Chu Qing knew that this ghoul was undergoing a process of refinement. Given the strange phenomenon of someone who had never entered the rank of rank becoming a 9th rank official, such commotion and changes are to be expected. The moment Chu Qing opened the front door, the eerie cry that had been silent all the way finally rang out again from his shoulder. Gaga gaga. The harsh, unpleasant sound, like scratching a blackboard with fingernails, gave him a glimpse of something unusual. Chu Qing covered her ears almost immediately, her bloodshot eyes fixed on the black crow in front of her. Wrong, it's not a black crow. After Chu Qing bestowed a ghost money upon the black crow, its yin and yang lifespans were completely balanced, and it began to ascend. After his promotion, Black Crow had completely changed. Its size was still the same, and it was probably even slightly smaller than before, at most only a size larger than an average crow. However, its eyes, which should have been equally black, turned bluish-green at this moment, shimmering with an eerie light in the darkness. Its feathers, which should have been jet black, were now streaked with dark red. Most importantly, its sharp beak was completely red, as if it had been soaked in blood. This ghoul is like a completely different creature from the Black Crow before it reached the highest level of cultivation. However, what Chu Qing didn't expect was the rule power this thing possessed after its advancement. Crow Demon. Rank ninth grade. Category Ghouls. Lifespan in the living world, 30 days. Lifespan in the dead world, 30 days. The tolling bell rule. The sound can mark creatures, greatly increasing the area where marked creatures are attracted to nearby eerie entities. The location and status of marked creatures can be detected at any time, with a maximum of 3 marked creatures allowed simultaneously. Night Patrol abilities. Enhanced vision in the dark, along with increased awareness of danger. Flight speed and stamina are significantly increased. Ghoul status can devour the corpses of living beings, gaining additional yin life points. However, both yin and yang life points are consumed daily. Promotion requirements unknown. Note a very useful ability. Human, you really did find such a promising ghoul under my guidance. Ignoring the blood-eyed demon's narcissism and attempt to claim credit, Chu Qing's blood-red eyes gazed at the black crow that had transformed into a raven demon with extreme satisfaction. Ghouls rarely have direct and bizarre rules for killing. The vast majority are assistants to the supernatural, and their rule-making abilities vary. Undoubtedly, the Black Raven before them possesses quite remarkable abilities among ghouls, including the Death Knell rule and the Night Patrol capability. This made him extremely happy. Back inside the cemetery, I glanced at the time. The clock had just struck 8:30. The trip went much more smoothly than he had imagined. After rehanging the lantern with human heads in front of the door and greeting the faceless ghost that had wandered around after hearing the noise, Chu Qing led Black Crow into the lounge. However, he ignored Black Crow again, tossed it onto the counter, and then stared intently at the door. Sure enough, as the Black Crow entered, the blood-red words on the door seemed to come alive again. Most importantly, along with this wriggling motion, Chu Qing finally felt an indescribable aura slowly gathering upon it. He had a feeling. Today, the eerie blood-stained words in this death apartment are about to appear. The eeriness he had been most looking forward to was about to take shape. However, before Chu Qing could concentrate on examining the details of this thing's appearance, the sound of a car engine suddenly stopped in front of the door. Chu Qing frowned slightly. And Ryuxu arrived so early. To his surprise, the car door slammed shut, and besides the ear-piercing sound of B*****G on the large iron gate outside the cemetery, there was also Liu Lion's extremely urgent shouts. Chu Qing, are you all right? I glanced at the blood-written words on the door. Sure enough, after it slowly began to wriggle, it seemed to be absorbed back into the glass door. However, for some reason, the originally transparent glass door appeared slightly reddish and cloudy in the darkness. Chu Qing thought for a moment, then went out and opened the large iron gate that had just been closed not long ago. Seeing Liu Lion's tense face, Chu Qing immediately understood, and the indifferent look in his eyes softened somewhat. The inspectorate acted swiftly. Without Black Crow as his wings for observation and evasion, Huang Hong, who had lost his eyesight, was indeed caught in less than half an hour. Phew, are you all right? Liu Lion finally breathed a sigh of relief after seeing the familiar Chu Qing. What's wrong? Chu Qing asked the question knowing the answer already. Huang Hong has been arrested, and the arrest location isn't far from here. I thought something had happened to you, it scared me to death. Liu Lion patted the surging waves. Chu Qing smiled. It's good that they caught him. Looking at the man's face in the darkness, Liu Lion opened her mouth, but for a moment she didn't know what to say. Even she herself didn't know why, in the dead of night, she impulsively came to such a dreadful place. On the contrary, why is this guy so calm about everything? So she mustered her courage and said, "Won't you let me in and have a seat?" Chu Qing nodded. Judging from the situation, the blood-red words on the death apartment were eerie and might take some time to fully materialize. So he simply led Liu Lion into his small house. Upon entering, the first thing Liu Lion saw was the strange, large bird pacing back and forth on the counter, feathers that are a mixture of dark red and jet black. It had eyes like a wolf and a blood-red beak and sharp claws. Upon seeing it, she gasped sharply. Just as Chu Qing frowned slightly, the girl's voice continued, "Wow, what a cool parrot, a parrot." Chu Qing was both amused and exasperated. "Chu Qing, do you really like keeping these small animals?" Hearing the girl's words, Chu Qing nodded. "I guess so, but I usually only raise animals that are useful to me." Liu Lion was stunned for a moment, then her gaze towards Chu Qing suddenly became strange. "You're not expecting this thing to help you pick up girls, are you?" Chu Qing couldn't help but chuckle. What kind of girl would like a pet like that? Liu Lion snorted. "Who said there isn't? I really like it. It's so cool." Chu Qing smiled without saying a word, seemingly oblivious to the implied meaning in his words. He glanced at the time. It's getting late, you should go back and rest. Tonight in Los Angeles is unlikely to be peaceful. Liu Lian was startled as if she had thought of something terrible and the joy on her face vanished. She thought for a moment, then asked hesitantly, Chu Qing, honestly, do you believe in ghosts? Chu Qing's expression remained calm and then he nodded. I believe you. Didn't you ask me this question during the day? No, I'm not kidding, I'm serious. Liu Lian wanted to explain. Chu Qing interrupted again saying, whether it's now or back then, I've never been joking with you. Looking at Chu Qing's smiling yet resolute face, Liu Lian opened her mouth but didn't know what to say. Chu Qing thought for a moment, then looked at the young girl again. All right, it's late, go home and rest. If you need any help, feel free to come to me. For tonight's sake, please. Liu Lian nodded. She actually had a lot more to say, but when she looked at Chu Qing's face under the flickering light of the tungsten bulb, she didn't know what to say. So she got back into the car and started the engine. In the rearview mirror, Chu Qing stood in front of the Beishan cemetery. The strange parrot remained perched on his shoulder, watching her walk away. For some reason, Liu Lian felt an unprecedented sense of security under that gaze. She breathed a sigh of relief, stepped on the gas, and the car started its return journey. At the same time, Chu Qing's words began to replay in her mind. Liu Lian chuckled, a smile playing on her lips. Then, seemingly in a very good mood, she picked up her phone and started playing some music. I came running towards you, you are the stars and the sea tilde. Unfortunately, this good mood lasted only a few minutes before being interrupted by a sudden phone call. Liu Lian frowned slightly, but after glancing at the caller ID, it was Captain Wang calling. She pressed the answer button. Hey Captain Wang, how's it going? Huang Hong confessed that this madwoman personally killed 6 people, including her husband and child, whom she initially killed accidentally. She's a monster. Upon hearing the serious matter, Liu Lian gasped in surprise. What does 6 people mean? In this era, such a major case is enough to shock the entire nation. However, we can't be entirely certain that we need to find evidence. The woman seemed to be insane and was seriously injured. After a preliminary interrogation, she was taken to the hospital. Team leader Wang's voice came through again. Liu Lian was clearly very concerned about this case. Captain Wang, how was she caught? Don't even mention it. When I asked her about it, she seemed to have completely gone mad. She's talking incoherently, saying she's being judged and punished by ghosts, constantly repeating things like that thing isn't human. There was a hint of helplessness and speechlessness in Captain Wang's voice. Clearly, interrogating such a madman who spoke incoherently, especially one who had committed such a shocking crime, was a considerable ordeal for him. She previously said that there was a ghost in Beishan Cemetery. She took a lot of homeless people and idlers and sent them to that ghost territory, then fed her so-called treasure with their corpses. This crazy woman also said that she was able to escape the Inspectorate's surveillance and Skynet's monitoring because of her precious baby. Liu Lian was taken aback. What could a madwoman so depraved as to kill and eat her own husband and son possibly call a treasure? Even tigers don't eat their cubs. What treasure could this madwoman possibly possess? At this point, it seems that Captain Wang has finally found someone to complain about. That's right, just tell me how crazy this woman is. The treasure she was talking about was a big crow. You know crows, right? You know those black birds. She said that crow could grab her and fly over Los Angeles. Isn't that ridiculous? Most importantly, the crow ate most of the flesh from the corpses of the people she killed. In all my years as a veteran criminal investigator, this is the first time I've ever seen a madman like this. Even if a crow is gluttonous, how much could it possibly eat? According to this madwoman, including those from Beishan Cemetery and the people she killed, there were probably more than 10 people. In just half a month, a grown adult, averaging 75 kilograms, was all eaten by a crow. That's F***G bullshit. Inside the dark car, Wang's cursing and venting voice still rang out from the car stereo. However, Liu Lian seemed unable to hear a single word clearly. Even though she tried to control herself from letting her mind wander, the image of that large, jet-black parrot with its dark red markings seemed to reappear before her eyes. And Chu Qing's voice seemed to echo in his ears once more. I wasn't joking with you. At this moment, Liu Lian seemed to finally realize something. Chu Qing seems to genuinely mean it. September 2nd, 9:30 p.m., 2.5 hours before the arrival of the terrifying era. Chu Qing didn't care what Liu Lian thought. At this moment, all his attention was focused on his own front door. In the dim light of the bulb, the originally transparent glass appeared to have turned a dark red. Furthermore, as time went on, this dark red color became increasingly vibrant and striking. It was conceived there, it was born here. As Chu Qing's gaze fell upon them, it was as if strands of blood appeared in the air. Like tiny, scarlet snakes as thin as a hair, they slithered and undulated in the air. King Dingzai of Biancheng, who was promoted from the position of tomb guardian in the underworld, was hailed as the best choice for a tomb ghost. The Death Apartment, a bizarre legend from the previous life on Earth. At this very moment, before the bizarre era has officially arrived, it is finally about to appear in my hands. Countless streams of blood were rolling around. Even the tungsten bulbs overhead seemed unable to suppress the crimson glow emanating from the doorway at this moment. Time passed by minute by minute. A hint of tension involuntarily appeared on Chu Qing's pale face. Even his blood-red pupils involuntarily appeared at this moment. Gurgling, it resembles flowing water, finally. That utterly ordinary door has changed. On the once transparent glass, copious amounts of blood seeped out, flowing down like a waterfall. The splashing blood seemed to have an inexplicable connection with Chu Qing. The biggest difference between Chu Qing and Ding Zai back then is that the characters Chu Qing writes when preparing to make a move are all made of his blood mixed with yin energy. The birth of the bazaar has no rules. This nonsensical way of being born seems unreliable. But Chu Qing, who had suffered for so many years in the bazaar world in his previous life, knew that one should not apply one's habitual thinking to the bazaar. The blood-stained words in the death apartment are eerie, that's how it is. In other words, these words written in blood are Chu Qing's blood. Chu Qing used his own blood to create, or rather to summon, this bizarre entity. And now the bazaar has taken shape. The blood, flowing like a waterfall, then detached from the glass door in midair, floated down and landed in Chu Qing's hand. Clearly, the blood Chu Qing had previously extracted was valuable. Compared to when Ding Zai summoned this thing, it undoubtedly felt closer to Chu Qing. Chu Qing immediately turned his bloodshot eyes to the pool of blood in his hand. He was indeed curious about the legendary death apartment. What exactly does this prototype of the death apartment look like? One that even a first-rank, king-level, yin-class ghost master could devour. Blood Demons. Rank 9th grade. Category Earthbound Spirits. Lifespan in the Underworld, 20 days. Hell Contract Rule. All beings who see the blood-red words Death Guidance must fulfill the Death Guidance quest within a time limit. Otherwise, triggering the Death Rule will result in their annihilation. Death Guidance Ability. The Blood Ghost can sense the unsettling within fate and issue death missions. By fulfilling the corresponding Death Guidance mission, the Blood Ghost receives death feedback and gains more lifespan. Bound Spirit Status. Requires finding a place to reside. Otherwise, daily lifespan consumption is multiplied by 10. Promotion requirements unknown. Note, how could such a thing exist? Human, what have you created? Looking at the pool of blood in his hand, Chu Qing finally couldn't help but smile. Just as I expected, the prototype of the legendary death apartment, it possesses the powerful ability and rules to guide destiny. Even the lowest rank, the 9th grade, can acquire yin lifespan through both rules and abilities. While not possessing the same preemptive strike ability and overt combat power as Blood Eye, Blood Demon's abilities are clearly more applicable to other areas. Just as Ding Zai had predicted, this death apartment is the perfect place for a tomb ghost. Putting everything else aside, just take this death guide as an example. For the underworld profession of tomb keeper, there can never be too many eerie things happening in the tombs. After all, for gravediggers, the eerie often is even a consumable. However, with this blood-letter ghost's death guide, it seems there will be no shortage of bizarre captures and acquisitions. Thinking of this, Chu Qing wished he could carve a tombstone and be buried in a coffin right now, becoming the tomb keeper. Then, harnessing this blood-red lettering, one becomes a tomb demon. Fortunately, Chu Qing wouldn't have to wait too long at this point. He glanced at the time one last time. 10:40, there are only 80 minutes left until midnight. A bizarre era has arrived and the Book of Life and Death has appeared. Although the appearance of the Book of Life and Death does not mean that the supernatural has been completely exposed to the public, nor does it mean that everyone is qualified to change to a ghostly profession and become a ghost tamer. However, this is a symbol and also an emblem. However, after feeling the coldness of the blood-written words in his hand, Chu Qing quickly frowned slightly. That's right, it's almost 11 o'clock. The eerie era is just around the corner. But what about Enryuxu, whom we promised to meet? If he remembers correctly, he had told Enryuxu to come over in the evening. Although the agreed time was midnight, given this woman's personality, she should have arrived earlier. His brow furrowed slightly, however, at this moment. The newly formed blood-red characters seemed to sense the chill in the air. The crimson liquid, flowing like a stream, left his hand and then re-entered the glass door that had been restored to its original state. The blood-red characters began to writhe, and to Chu Qing's astonishment, they slowly formed rows of characters that appeared on the glass door. Chu Qing never expected that this blood character ghost, which had just been formed, would directly display its rule-based abilities. What he didn't expect was that he would become the first person to prove the power of this rule. However, the blood-written words formed by this blood-letter ghost were even more unexpected to him. Location. Immediately proceed to the last bus stop on Route 404, 500 meters from Beishan Cemetery. Time limit within 1 hour. Mission objective. Rescue Ryuxu, who is trapped atop the ghost taxi, and eliminate or subdue the ghost taxi. Task reward. Unknowns. Mission failure penalty. Death crossed out, the scarlet ghost leaves and must find a suitable new home. Looking at the blood-written words, Chu Qing realized at that moment that Ryuxu wasn't late, but rather leaving. Ryuxu had never felt so unlucky before. Her hands and feet were trembling slightly. In this taxi, in this September weather, it felt as if the air conditioning was set to its lowest setting, so cold that a chill seemed to seep into her very bones. Damn it, damn it, damn it, and Ryuxu cursed in her heart more than once. Why? Why did Lin Hengshen's car suddenly break down today? Why take a taxi here instead of going home and driving out your old BMW? Why? She had many questions, but clearly at this point saying anything was pointless. Miss, we've arrived. Here's a day's worth of spirit money, thank you. That's right, at this very moment, what the taxi driver in front of me wants is ghost money. The problem is, where is she going to get ghost money? More importantly, would a normal driver accept counterfeit money? Not to mention, after one glance, she could no longer bear to look at the driver's pale face and his white, pupil-less eyes. She knew she had encountered a ghost again. Unfortunately, this ghost today isn't meant to kill like Chu Qing did, it's here to take his own life. Is this karma? She stood by and even fueled the flames, leading to the destruction of the Lin family. And yet, in just a few days, the ghost has come knocking on our door. She desperately tried to call Chu Qing, but inside the taxi, it seemed as if all signals and electronic devices were blocked. She had no way of asking Chu Qing for help. Fortunately, Ryuxu was clearly no ordinary person. Chu Qing had told her that there were certain rules to be followed in bizarre murders. She didn't know what those rules were, but not being able to pay the money was definitely the most likely rule that would lead to certain death. She took a deep breath and said directly, "Sir, you haven't taken me to my destination yet. How can I pay you if I haven't taken me there? We've arrived." The cold, stiff, and sluggish voice made Ryuxu tremble even more, but at this moment she knew that she couldn't panic. She couldn't truly lose her composure. Once things fall into chaos, it's truly all over. I said to go to Beishan Cemetery. You've only just dropped me off at this bus stop. You're not a bus, you're a taxi. I can't pay you until you get to your destination. Taxi and bus. Clearly, these words seemed to have worked, and the taxi driver fell silent. Ryuxu held her breath, recalling Chu Qing's words once again. The current anomaly may lack intelligence, but precisely because of this, it requires completely fulfilling the other party's rules for killing in order to die. However, some strange rules can be adjusted locally. For example, right now, at this moment, Ryuxu was almost certain that if she couldn't pay the fare, the murder rule would inevitably be triggered. They are certain to die. Therefore, even though she felt the hope was slim, she still wanted to do everything she could to buy time. No, that's not a node, we can't go there, we can only get off here. After a moment of thought, words uttered from that cold, corpse-like mouth made Ryuxu's heart sink. Why should I pay you? You didn't deliver it to my address, so why should I pay you? Ryuxu forced herself to speak. She never imagined in her life that she would argue with a weirdo over a taxi fare. But at this point, this was all she could do. Then half a day's worth of spirit money, thank you. To Ryuxu's surprise, the taxi driver actually gave her a discount. But what's the point? Where would she get any ghost money for the dead? Who knows where that thing came from? What's the difference between a full day and half a day? If you can't provide it, aren't you doomed anyway? However, Ryuxu was unaware that, in fact, Yinshu did not have a unit of half a day at all. Therefore, the fare for this ghost taxi and this so-called discount are meaningless. No way. Why should I pay you if it's not delivered to the correct location? It has to be free. Ryuxu threw a tantrum, even though she had rarely done so in her life. More importantly, her tantrum was completely baseless. Afraid. The taxi driver repeated the sentence, seemingly finally realizing something and understanding something. He sat in the front and suddenly turned his head. This almost made Ryuxu, who was already restless, jump up. Those snow-white eyes devoid of any pupils were fixed intently on Ryuxu. The pale, bloodless face suddenly became incredibly ferocious and terrifying, and a voice, as if squeezed out from between clenched teeth, said, "Pay up or die." These words plunged in Ryuxu into an icy abyss. The temperature inside the taxi seemed to drop another 10 degrees at that moment. Her gums chattered uncontrollably, and she could only grit her teeth and say, "Here, I'll pay." The temperature in the air seemed to rise slightly because of this. But Ryuxu, pretending to be sophisticated, picked up her favorite Hermes calfskin bag and examined it for a long time. Only when the chill in the carriage began to resurface did she forcefully suppress the panic in her eyes and take out 3 full stacks of bright red Huxia currency. That's a whopping 30,000 yuan. It's not just for this taxi ride. It could even buy a cheap second-hand taxi. Unfortunately, these things were like waste paper to the figure in front of him. This can be seen from the fact that the temperature inside the car had once again reached the depths of winter. "I need money, this isn't money, it's ghost money. Without it, you die." Finally, and Ryuxu was finally about to taste the bitterness of death. Even though her mind was no longer that of an ordinary person, when faced with such an irresistible death, her large eyes were still filled with tears. She didn't want to die, she really didn't want to die. Especially at this point in the night, she wants to become a true superior person to control the fate of others. But that coldness had been creeping closer and closer without her even realizing it. She felt as if she were encased in ice, unable to even feel her own existence. They couldn't even escape or even struggle. Is this a mysterious power? Her thoughts and consciousness seemed to be frozen. However, in the very instant before death was imminent, bang, 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 a dull thud came from outside the car window. Like heavenly music, it brought back the consciousness that was about to dissipate. The car window in front rolled down, and on the edge of life and death, and Ryuxu heard a voice that was extremely familiar. "Master, shall we go?" And Ryuxu struggled to look up, her gaze falling on the open car window facing the driver. In the darkness, she saw a familiar pair of blood-red eyes. This is a taxi that is no different from any other. The iconic blue and white taxis of Los Angeles even have green license plates for new energy vehicles. However, the only slight difference might be the taxi's license plate, 40,004. Negative. It's obvious that this license plate isn't for a legitimate taxi. However, in the dim light of night, very few people would actually bother to properly check taxi license plates. Chu Qing calmly lowered her head, looking at the open car window and the middle-aged man inside. Ghost taxi. He naturally had no idea what kind of strange thing this was. Of all the fierce battles he fought in his previous life, the ones he could remember were the bizarre and infamous beings who would later become famous, at least at the third-rank level. These were clearly roadside goods, not within his scope of attention. But as the saying goes, even a lion uses its full strength to hunt a rabbit. Blood Eyes observed everything about the other person the instant he opened his mouth. Ghost taxi. Rank 9th grade. Category Ghost Child. Lifespan in the Underworld, 3 days. Paying for debt with life rule. After the mission is accomplished, guests who cannot pay their remaining lifespan will die. Mission accomplished ability. Can pick up any passenger at any Los Angeles bus stop and travel to all marked locations at extremely high speed. Child Ghost Status. A child ghost under the jurisdiction of the ghost mother. After its lifespan is exhausted, it will not die, but will instead consume the ghost mother's lifespan. However, after the ghost mother dies, all child ghosts will also die. Promotion requirements unknown. Note: obviously humans are nothing special, but there seems to be something interesting behind them. Chu Qing blinked slightly. The child ghost of the mother and child ghosts. Clearly, his previous assumptions and disdain were proven wrong. Even after so many years since the outbreak of the bizarre era in the previous life, the mother and child ghosts are still extremely troublesome and rare. Most importantly, the location of the demon mother is extremely difficult to find, and once provoked, it often leads to a fight to the death. If possible, Chu Qing really wouldn't want to provoke such an unknown thing in the early stages. However, Chu Qing couldn't possibly skip the first task assigned by the blood demon. Otherwise, this prototype of the death apartment that he summoned with his own hands would end up like Ding Zai before, running away to find another place to live after failing to complete the first blood letter mission. This is unacceptable. As the child ghost among the mother and child ghosts, Chu Qing also knew that unless the mother ghost was controlled and subdued, this thing was simply impossible to control. Therefore, there can only be one outcome. Let's get in the car, get in. The physical manifestation of the ghost taxi, the middle-aged man, uttered a halting, stuttering sound. This does not mean that the other party possesses wisdom. In fact, some of the strange things about the rules of killing involve contact with people. And when they don't demonstrate any of the rules' abilities, they can even look exactly like ordinary people. This is also one of the most terrifying and bizarre types. If it weren't for blood eyes, Chu Qing probably wouldn't have been able to discover the guy's background so quickly. However, once he saw through its true nature, this thing would no longer pose any threat or have any meaning to Chu Qing. The middle-aged man in the ghost taxi looked at Chu Qing in front of him. He wanted to get this prey into the car first, and then quietly devour the previous prey. But at that very moment, his eyes, which had previously returned to a state of lifelessness, stared blankly into Chu Qing's eyes. Those red eyes were so alluring, so eerie, that they froze its almost non-existent thoughts, leaving it staring blankly at them. This was exactly the ending Chu Qing wanted to see. A sinister smile flickered in his eyes. And Ryuxu, sitting in the back seat, had no idea how the time had passed. If she could, she would open the car door right now, get out, and run away. However, she also knew that this was not the time to act rashly. She could only stare tremblingly at the driver's seat in the front, forcibly resisting looking into those red eyes. Because she had witnessed the terror of those blood-red eyes before. She knew that was not a realm that humans could access. And that is indeed the case. Crunch, crunch. A strange sound came from the front seat. The sound was like irregularly breaking bones or like a crowing rooster being choked. Struggling, screaming, emitting the last ripples of life, yet helplessly marching towards death. The ghost taxi's originally anthropomorphic dead fish eyes gradually turned pale, its gaze devoid of expression, even lacking fear and surprise. However, its body slowly emerged from the open car window, or rather, he was dragged out by that blood-red gaze. Chu Qing's pupils had never been so blood-red before. Those originally dark eye sockets seemed to be completely filled with this blood red. At this moment, the yin energy emanating from the blood-red eyes was more intense than ever before. Those eyes were even more ferocious than a human head lantern. Pshaw. It looked as if something was on fire. This dragging ghost taxi finally gave Chu Qing a unique feeling. Aside from Lin Hengxian before, this is the first time Blood Eye has eaten. However, even if it were Lin Hengxian, his death would not allow Chu Qing to eat him with satisfaction. Previously, whether it was the faceless demon, the crow demon, or the human head lantern, their state is that of being locked in by blood eyes, eye for an eye rule, in a state of being taken away at will, already placed in its mouth but never swallowed. But this ghost taxi, he finally had no more scruples and swallowed it whole. Starting from the feet, the yin energy began to dissipate. Those blood-red eyes at this moment seemed to have transformed into a pair of blood-red vortexes. The overflowing yin energy was completely swallowed up by the blood-red vortex. Everything was engulfed by those blood-red eyes. Until the ghost taxi that was standing in front of me has completely vanished without a trace. Chu Qing closed her eyes, I don't know when. A line of blood-red tears streamed down the corners of his eyes. It was as if eerie blood-red eyeshadow was appearing there. The coolness and warmth seemed to converge in his eyes, giving Chu Qing an indescribable sense of comfort and pleasure. Still in that taxi, and Ryuxu involuntarily covered her mouth. She felt not fear, not disgust, not revulsion. Her sparkling eyes after being rescued proved, she's excited, she's eager, she's in awe. Chu Qing. Grade. None. Lifespan in the underworld, 6 months and 21 days. Lifespan in the living world, 3 months. Symbiotic state. Lifespan is greatly reduced, allowing complete control over the blood-eyed demon. Note: although it's just a small ghost, it tastes pretty good. Let's celebrate having our first edible meal. Of course, the thing behind it probably won't let us off the hook, but with me here. This ghost rental provided him with nearly 3 months of lifespan in the underworld. This is a pretty good improvement. However, if he could, he still wouldn't like collecting yin life points this way. Such a yin lifespan will have a certain impact on thinking and self-awareness. It's fine to eat it once every now and then, but if you keep consuming it like this every day, it probably won't be long before even Chu Qing's willpower will be like that inhuman and ghostly Huang Hong. Besides, while lifespan in the underworld is important, he has many ways to obtain it, so there's no need to exchange his clear consciousness and future prospects for it. Chu Qing opened her eyes. Those blood-red eyes did not disappear. He ignored Ryuxu inside the taxi and didn't bother asking pointless questions like why she was there. Instead, he stared intently at the taxi. Chu Qing had sensed it the moment he dragged the ghost taxi out of the car. This taxi is probably not an ordinary taxi. Bloodshot eyes locked onto the thing in front of them again, and sure enough, taxi no. 40,004. Rank 9th grade. Category Funerary Objects. Death Rush ability. While driving, you can ignore and weave through all pedestrians, vehicles, and some obstacles on the road, doubling your speed. Expensive Driving Curse. Every 100 kilometers driven consumes 1 day of your lifespan. Note this piece of junk, while a bit lacking as my mount, is still passable. Human, let's go for a spin. Clearly, this thing is the same as the black coin Chu Qing encountered before. However, the black coin is not only a ninth-grade netherworld artifact, but also a piece of the puzzle for that high-grade netherworld artifact. However, this taxi, number 40,004, is clearly more of a pure one. Therefore, compared to the black coins, this funerary object has an additional negligible curse effect. Driving 100 kilometers consumes a day of one's lifespan, which is undeniably extravagant. However, even regular cars need to refuel, so for something like this that doesn't need to consider speed limits or pedestrians, this little extra expense is still worthwhile. Funerary artifacts are extremely valuable. As expected in the early stages of the strange occurrences, good things were easy to find. In later generations, once the value of these things was known, they became much more difficult to obtain. Thinking of this, Chu Qing didn't call in Ryuxu out of the car. Instead, he opened the car door and got into the driver's seat. Chu Qing. Sit tight, buckle up. And Ryuxu quickly understood why she needed to wear a seatbelt even when sitting in the back seat. Chu Qing's kick produced no roaring engine sound, only a sharp, extremely fast speed gust of wind. At this moment, Chu Qing finally understood what a true death storm was. He glanced at the time. 11:20. There's still plenty of time. You can certainly try out the use of this funerary object. After all, this taxi number 40,004 was the first funerary object he had ever used in this life. As for black copper coins, those aren't allowed to be used unless they're considered high-grade. It's still best to rely on the god of wealth to generate wealth. And Ryuxu's breathing became incredibly tense and rapid, because it's too fast. In just 5 seconds, that's not 0 to 300 km/h acceleration anymore. That's right, in just 5 seconds this taxi, which looked no different from any other dilapidated taxi, actually sped up to its top speed of 300 kilometers per hour. This is insane. Chu Qing has gone mad, and Ryuxu could be 100% certain. This speed is already terrifying in the suburbs of Los Angeles, but at this speed it only took half a minute to enter the city. Although it was past 11 p.m., there were still pedestrians and other vehicles around at that time. Is he out of his mind? Clearly, and Ryuxu's concerns were justified. Because in the very next moment, a large vehicle slowly coming to a stop at the traffic light came into view. The question is, can this speed be stopped? A series of screams made Ryuxu feel the approach of death once again. But at this moment, Chu Qing showed no intention of braking at all. Instead, she accelerated even faster. What does 400 kilometers per hour mean? Even high-speed trains typically travel at speeds between 250 and 350 kilometers per hour. Even the speed at which airplanes take off is usually only above 300 kilometers per hour. But now, this dilapidated taxi has actually reached this alarming speed. Such a shout in less than a second, and the rear of the Daeun truck had already made contact with Chu Qing. However, after Ryuxu closed her eyes, she did not feel any terrifying roar or pain. She opened her eyes in a daze. The car was still speeding along. Even though the speed had decreased slightly, it was still moving at an incredibly high speed. The cars on the road and even some obstacles couldn't stop its relentless advance. It went straight through the middle. She was unharmed as well. What's going on? That's amazing. She didn't know what had happened. All she knew was that she had survived once again. What follows is the thrill and excitement of being on the brink of life and death. All these things were brought by the man in front of her. Unfortunately, Chu Qing ignored her. Such a scene would be a rare experience for others, but for him in his previous life, it was nothing more than a piece of cake. After performing a 360-degree drift from the middle of the road, the speed was still climbing to 400 miles per hour. What would normally be a at least half-hour drive from the edge of Luoyang city center. In just 3 minutes, Chu Qing had run a round trip. When the taxi stopped in front of Beishan Cemetery and Ryuxu's legs went weak, she finally got out of the car that had brought her closest to death. They drove it into the cemetery, and Chu Qing led Ryuxu back to his security room. There's still some time before midnight. Chu Qing ignored Ryuxu, who was still oblivious to what was happening, and instead looked at the blood-red words on the glass door. Sure enough, after he stepped across the threshold, the eerie blood-red lettering, seemingly a guide to destiny, began to slowly seep out. Mission complete. And Ryuxu has been successfully rescued, and the rental ghost has been successfully eliminated. Guided by death, the blood demon gained 5 days of his remaining lifespan. Executor's mission reward, taxi number 40,004, Underworld artifact. Seeing the words written in blood, Chu Qing's eyelids twitched. She clearly saw the taxi and brought it back herself. Now it's your reward, isn't it? However, Chu Qing didn't dwell on such a trivial matter. The completion of the Bloodletter quest also allowed the Bloodletter to remain quietly atop that gate, so everything is ready. Next, we had to wait for the eerie revival that would finally arrive in about half an hour. It's officially here, night fell. At this time in the Dragon Kingdom and throughout the eastern part of the entire Blue Star, the vast majority of people were already fast asleep. The world was gloomy and everything seemed different, yet it was unclear what was different. This is a large bridge. This bridge is quite special in the entire city of Los Angeles, and its value and significance are extraordinary. It runs through both banks of the entire Yellow River. It is approximately 4 kilometers long. Even late at night, vehicles still pass by here from time to time. Liu Heping was clearly one of them. However, compared to others, Liu Heping, a fatigued driver who had been driving all day, was clearly quite tired. The bridge before him, illuminated by streetlights in the darkness, resembled a stairway to the underworld, causing him to involuntarily stop his vehicle. It stopped at the roadside just before the bridge. He wanted to rest for a while, take a nap in the car, and then set off again tomorrow morning. Thinking of this, he leaned back in his chair. I played some soothing music and glanced at the time one last time, 11:59 p.m. Sure enough, it was the perfect time to rest and sleep. Thinking of this, Liu Heping smiled, but before he could even lie down and close his eyes. The number representing time was then completely reset to 0. September 3rd, 000. Time has come to a starting point and also to an end at this moment. Suddenly, for some reason, Liu Heping felt a chilling cold. The chill dispelled much of his drowsiness, and he instinctively took out his phone to check the navigation to see how far it was from his destination. However, this glance made Liu Heping pause for a moment. The phone screen, which should have been pointing to the navigation interface, suddenly went completely black. The next moment, just when Liu Heping thought the phone was out of power, a splash of crimson spread from the black screen. Then the crimson blood slowly formed a line of text, "Welcome to the Age of Horror. This is a death game where humans dance with the bizarre, a spooky paradise in a new era. Poor humanity, you will now eke out a living in endless darkness. And you, Liu Heping, unfortunately, you are just an ordinary human being. You don't know what Yin Shu, a concept in Huxia mythology associated with the dead, is, what the supernatural is, let alone how to resist or control them. So unfortunately, barring any unforeseen circumstances, you will die soon. Go to hell, you're the one who's going to die. In this day and age, there are still cell phone viruses." Liu Heping was confused, and a hint of anger lingered in his expression. He decisively chose to shut down the phone. However, to his astonishment, even after the computer was turned off, the text on it showed no sign of disappearing. Instead, entirely new text appeared again. "Foolish humans, since you refuse to accept reality, then wallow in eternal death. Don't worry, it awaits you ahead." Damn it, Liu Heping tossed his phone aside, glanced at the darkness outside, the empty highway, and the distant Luyang Yellow River Bridge, and all his previous drowsiness and fatigue vanished without a trace. He simply restarted the engine, intending to get home as quickly as possible. The phone, tossed face down onto the passenger seat, once again displayed blood-red text on its screen. "Human beings inevitably will all die. And countless deaths are caused by the inherent folly of the human species itself. Go, embrace it." The car started moving again. On this bridge over the Yellow River, viewed from above, it resembled a small boat floating on the river or sea, as if a slight ripple could swallow it whole. The night was dark. Fog has appeared on the surface of the Luyang Yellow River Bridge some time ago. Inside an apartment in Los Angeles, there were no ordinary girls' dolls and certainly no pink decorations that girls like. This is an extremely clean and simple room. However, Liu Lion, lying in bed, couldn't fall asleep no matter how much she tossed and turned. She's been through so much in the last 2 days. I saw so many things. It was a huge shock to her. Even after lying in bed for half a day, I still couldn't fall asleep at all. Images kept flashing through her mind. The life-or-death struggle of the human head lantern, the countless corpses and remains in Huang Hong's house, the woman who seemed to have gone mad, and the black and red parrot. And the man who appeared most often, always with a faint smile, Chu Qing. He seemed to possess an endless magic, drawing Liu Lion to explore him. This involuntarily reminded her of the first time she met Chu Qing. So Liu Lion thought for a moment and sent a voice call to a friend in her WeChat contacts. Soon, a somewhat tired voice came from the other end of the phone. "Hey, little sister, are you all right?" This question puzzled Liu Lion. "I'm fine, brother, aren't you asleep yet?" Liu Ci smiled slightly on the other end of the phone. He and his family doted on their younger sister, Liu Lion. "If you're not asleep, how can I sleep? What? Missing your older brother?" "It's nothing, I just wanted to ask if you know someone." "Who?" "Chu Qing, probably the same age as me," Liu Lion said. The voice on the other end of the phone paused for a moment as if pondering. "Chu Qing. There is indeed a Chu family in Kyoto, but I've never heard of such a person." Liu Lion frowned slightly then nodded. Oh, maybe I made a mistake. All right, bro, you should get some rest. However, at this moment, Liu Ci did not hang up immediately. Wait a minute, sister. I've heard some strange things have been happening in Lowe's Angels lately. You insist on going back to our ancestral home to do some kind of inspector job. You should know something about this, right? What do you know? Never mind. Liu Ci's voice suddenly became somewhat low. Zia Lion, you should take some time to go back to Kyoto. It's too dangerous out there. Let's see how it goes, okay, I'm going to sleep. Liu Lion knew that with her brother's abilities and family status, he might actually know something, and perhaps returning to Kyoto was indeed a safer option. But at that moment she remembered that figure again. What secrets does Chu Qing hold? The call was disconnected. Liu Lion glanced at the time, 23:59, it's really late. I wonder what my brother is doing at this hour instead of sleeping. However, since I can't sleep, I'll read a book for a while. However, just as she picked up a random book, suddenly, the original large volume began to slowly twist. A book with blood-red pages appeared before my eyes. Before Liu Lion could react, a string of black characters appeared on the blood-red page. Welcome to the Age of Horror. This is a death game where humans dance with the bizarre, a spooky paradise in a new era. Poor humanity, you will now eke out a living in endless darkness. And you, Liu Lion, it's a pity, you are just an ordinary human being. You may have escaped death at the hands of some strange being, but that's not enough for you to live peacefully in this era. Looking at the dark characters above, Liu Lion was panicked, but her reaction was much stronger than that of an ordinary person like Liu Heping. Perhaps it was her experiences these past few days that made her realize that this world seems to have changed from the one she knew before. However, just as Liu Lion was feeling bewildered and surprised, a brand new, jet black note slowly flowed out from the blood-red pages. However, you are lucky, you have gained the favor of someone. Cherish this friendship, it will benefit you greatly. Welcome to the Age of Horror. This is a death game where humans dance with the bizarre, a spooky paradise in a new era. Those poor, lowly humans will now eke out a living in endless darkness. Of course, this has nothing to do with you, Your Excellency. You only need to occasionally display your kindness and compassion to demonstrate your power as a leader. Your Excellency, you are the enigmatic amalgamator, the witness to change, and the pioneer of our time. It's my pleasure to serve you, Lord Chu Qing. Looking at the watch on her wrist, Chu Qing smiled. The Book of Life and Death was as snobbish as ever. That's right, the vessel for his Book of Life and Death is this smartwatch, which he must have bought just a week before his rebirth. Of course, this is essentially irrelevant. As long as you are human, the Book of Life and Death will not disappear or be discarded in this terrifying era. It will appear beside you in any form you can access. He ignored Ryuxu, who was still in a daze. As Chu Qing touched the watch and the Book of Life and Death, thoughts raced through his mind. Check the information of the strange entity I'm controlling. The reason why the Age of Horror is called a death game is largely due to the Book of Life and Death. This thing has the ability to examine its own information, somewhat similar to the blood-eyed demon's ability to see and perceive, except that it can only examine itself and the strange entities completely under its control. However, as expected, checking the information about the blood-eyed demon through the Book of Life and Death revealed little difference between the blood-eyed demon's observation method and its method of having eyes and pupils. The slight difference lies in the fact that beneath the abilities of an eye for an eye and having eyes and seeing, there is an additional small distinction. Weight level 10s. Chu Qing's lips curled up. The power level of the 9th rank is limited to between 1 and 10. Under the rule-based competition, those with higher power have an advantage in activating rule abilities. Although Chu Qing had seen beings whose weight level exceeded the level limit in his previous life, the display of Blood Eyes abilities was already sufficient. He glanced at it again, seemingly noticing that Chu Qing was in a good mood. Below the Book of Life and Death, a new note appeared. Your Excellency, to be able to control such a bizarre being with an ordinary human body that has never reached the highest level is truly astonishing. However, it's clearly not enough to survive in such a world with such a frail body. Only by reaching the 9th rank can you use your own strength to fight against the strange beings. So do you want to know how to become an incarnation? Hee, although it's a little embarrassing to talk about this, but as great as you are, all you need to do is pay 5 years of your lifespan in the Underworld, and I can tell you this secret that only I know. Friendly reminders. If you don't have enough yin lifespan, you can use yang lifespan to convert it. Just click on my character to select the conversion option. Isn't that thoughtful? Seeing the prompt in the Book of Life and Death, Chu Qing smiled again. In my previous life, countless ordinary people, whether naive or desperate in a moment of crisis, were deceived and actually used their precious years, or even decades of their lifespan to exchange for this so-called secret. The secret is simple. It's about changing your job to a ghost job. That's right, it's gone. 5 years of yin lifespan were exchanged for the answer that changing to a yin job will allow one to enter the ninth rank. However, the Book of Life and Death doesn't explain exactly how to change jobs to the corresponding underworld job. This thing is such a ripoff. As for the specific methods of changing to a lower-level job, even if one has a lifespan in the Book of Life and Death, it cannot be exchanged. These methods were developed and researched over many years during a time of terror. The Book of Life and Death is merely a tool. If someone truly considers it a golden finger cheat code, then Chu Qing can only wish that the other party doesn't die a too miserable death. As for his underworld duties, he had already made preparations. Then he glanced at Enryuksu beside him. Don't trust any of the dialogue on that thing, especially anything that asks you to exchange for yin life points. Remember, yin life points are your greatest asset for survival in this world. And Ryuxu nodded quickly, still full of interest. Chu Qing didn't bother with her anymore. Instead, he slowly sat up straight. He didn't need to ask the Book of Life and Death about that useless method of changing one's job in the underworld. As the king of Chujiang in his previous life, Chu Qing's most precious possession was the dozens, even hundreds, of methods for changing and advancing in various ranks of yin positions that he had in his mind. The tomb keeper he prepared for himself is someone who has been working towards this goal ever since his rebirth. Thinking of this, he casually glanced at the Book of Life and Death again. Your Excellency, it is truly heartbreaking that you distrust me so much. He ignored it and continued to let his thoughts wander freely. Please check my information. Whether the Book of Life and Death truly possesses inherent wisdom is a question that scholars in the previous life have been researching. The origins of this thing were never definitively determined in the end. However, the only certainty is that the existence of the Book of Life and Death cannot directly defy the executable orders of the Ghost Master. Even when it comes to luring away the yin lifespan, the primary method is luring, not actual deception. As expected, some information about Chu Qing slowly appeared in the Book of Life and Death. Chu Qing. Grade. None. Lifespan in the underworld, 6 months and 21 days. Lifespan in the living world, 3 months. Symbiotic state. Lifespan is greatly reduced, allowing complete control over the blood-eyed demon. State unknown state. Note. Your Excellency, it seems you harbor quite a few secrets. Chu Qing had only glanced at it casually before preparing to begin the Tomb Keeper's initiation ceremony. But upon closer inspection, something truly remarkable was discovered. Even the blood-eyed demon couldn't detect his own state. Was there something he didn't know about? So, what is this unknown state that even he is unaware of? Chu Qing remained silent. He had already thought of it. His rebirth, though beyond his comprehension, will inevitably bring about some unique changes and differences for him. So, what exactly was the reason for his rebirth? Is it the bead that appeared alongside the mural we saw in that strange, mysterious place? Chu Qing didn't know. He shook his head, too lazy to think about it. Regardless, having the chance to be reborn and start over already puts one far ahead of everyone else. He couldn't possibly waste such an opportunity. Only by continuously improving one's strength can one meet any challenge. With that thought in mind, he no longer hesitated. The gravedigger's underworld job advancement has begun. He was equally determined to obtain the special reward bestowed upon the first tomb keeper. The deceased was Chu Qing. Birth date and time, July 15, 2003, 11:45 p.m. midnight. Time of death, 3:45 a.m. on September 3, 2025. On the enormous stone tablet, these lines of text are clearly carved and written. Even above that stone tablet, there was indeed a black and white photograph of Chu Qing. Lifelike and incredibly realistic. This enormous stone tablet was placed in the very center of the burial area in Beishan Cemetery. The Beishan Cemetery is desolate and dilapidated. There are hardly any tombstones or urns left. Even if there were any, Chu Qing had already packed them up in the past 2 days. Now in this vast cemetery, only this one huge stone tablet stands. Behind the stone tablet in the unexcavated cemetery lay a large, dark, somber wooden coffin. The coffin was opened, and the contents were placed there neatly, awaiting their owner's arrival. Chu Qing's gaze was calm. He took one last look at the stone tablet, then dripped a drop of blood onto the photograph and smeared it evenly before slowly walking over the tablet. How do I change my status from the lowest-ranking 9th grade underworld official, the Tomb Keeper? It's very simple. The 2 most basic requirements for finding a burial plot are a tombstone and a coffin. Engrave your name, leave your photo, and record the time you started your job change as your time of death. Then lie down in the coffin and wait for 2 hours. It looks extremely simple, but besides that there is a strict and demanding condition. It was precisely because of this condition that the development of the method for changing the profession of tomb keeper was actually somewhat delayed. That is, the tombstone and coffin must be located within the area of wild and eerie activity. Therefore, these 2 hours are not just about sleeping in a coffin. They also involve facing potentially eerie threats. It is precisely for this reason that the low-yield, difficult-to-change job and mediocre combat power tomb keeper position was an option that was almost ignored by countless ghost masters in the Dragon Kingdom in the previous life. Unless absolutely necessary, one would not switch to the profession of gravedigger. However, putting everything else aside based on Chu Qing's own understanding, he knew that the tomb keeper's future was still very promising. With promotion, he could smoothly become the king of Biancheng, a successor of the Ten Kings. Unlike myself back then, who had to become a ninth-rank Underworld official as a paper craftsman and then switch career paths when advancing from 7th to 6th rank, only through great opportunity and countless strokes of luck could I transition to the lineage of King Chujiang. If Chu Qing hadn't wasted so much time at that stage, he wouldn't have missed the first batch of Yin-Yang Ghost Masters to be promoted to the first rank in his previous life, thus falling further behind. This is why, after his rebirth, he almost never considered the underworld profession of paper maker. Although the method of becoming a paper maker is unimaginably simpler than that of a tomb keeper, the resulting combat power is not low. In addition, with the experience of the previous life, as long as the paper figures are folded quickly, there is no need to worry about the slow accumulation of lifespan. However, with the fusion of the Blood-Eyed Dragon Lord and the blessing of the Blood-Word Ghost, the prototype of the Death Apartment, Chu Qing naturally didn't need to repeat the old path. On the contrary, his relationship with Ding Zai allowed him to learn about many secrets and details of the Tomb Guardian lineage and the King of Biancheng. Thinking of this, Chu Qing checked the time, let out a slight breath and walked to the edge of the coffin. He looked at Enryuxu, who seemed somewhat bewildered and at a loss. He took out the white paper money for longevity that he had just snatched from the god of wealth's hand from his bosom. It was given to Enryuxu. This is the Yin Life banknote. Now use this Yin Life banknote to find all the strange things in this Bashan cemetery. Find one of them and make it willing to protect you or to spare your life when you are about to die. That will be fine once I wake up. Of course, if my lifespan in the underworld is insufficient, as you probably saw in the Book of Life and Death, you can use your lifespan in the mortal world to make up for it. Of course, you also know how precious and valuable that thing is. The less lifespan you expend using this method, the higher your future potential and ceiling will be. If you die, you can't blame anyone else. I need to stay inside for 2 hours. It's 12:10 now, which means I won't wake up until at least 2:10. You'd better watch out. And Ryuxu was stunned, staring at the yin shoe floating in her hand. At the same time, almost the instant she got her hands on it, she felt a series of gazes directed at her from all around her. The black and red raven that landed on a nearby branch, a figure that was indistinct in the darkness, and the blood-red lantern hanging on the mast. Even the yin god of wealth placed inside the house, and the blood-red characters on the door that she had glimpsed briefly but didn't understand earlier. She belatedly realized what had happened. These things are all the strange things mentioned in the Book of Life and Death. What she didn't expect was that Chu Qing's place not only had strange things, but there were so many of them. So how can she communicate with these strange entities and get them to protect her life? And Ryuxu didn't know, but having experienced the brush with death in the ghost taxi before, she knew she had no choice. If she gives up this opportunity, she might face the same situation many more times in the future. Leaving aside distant examples, just looking at the immediate future, Gao Hong, the chairman of Gaojian Company and the real culprit who sent the Yin god of wealth to the Lin family, is already eyeing her covetously. Destiny is something you have to fight for and struggle for. From a certain perspective, Chu Qing and Enryuxu have always been the same kind of people. Almost instantly, she made up her mind, looked at Chu Qing, pursed her lips, and nodded. He glanced at Enryuxu. Chu Qing ignored him again. He has done everything he could to be benevolent and righteous. It should be noted that he managed to suppress and subdue all the strange occurrences at Bashan Cemetery. They still possess a ferocity and their instinct for killing remains. However, here at least their power is greatly suppressed. If they complete the transaction and successfully survive these few hours, then the underworld life buyer can successfully change their profession. At that time, high-ranking underworld professions in the life-buying sequence, such as ghost merchants and underworld traders, would be quite suitable for Enryuxu. Regardless, it's still many times better than Enryuxu's starting point in her previous life. Needless to say, Chu Qing was already prepared to bring Enryuxu into the death apartment system. As long as she does well, Chu Qing can absolutely guarantee her future growth. Having arranged everything, Chu Qing wasted no more time. She slowly walked into the coffin and slammed the lid shut. Quack. Amidst the cries of the crow demons, the king began the ritual. The coffin was sealed. The world fell into utter silence at that moment. This enormous coffin seemed to have sealed away everything that had happened before. A red light flashed on the book of life and death, and lines of text appeared. You've been laid down in this coffin. Although no one understands the significance of doing so. The coffin was so dark that all you could hear was your increasingly heavy breathing and your increasingly labored heartbeat. This kind of sound is a good thing for you, because no matter what, it proves that you are still a living person, isn't it? This place is far too dangerous. Countless terrifying beings lurk here, ready to devour you at any moment, poised to strike. You're terrified, but you know the outside world is so dangerous. Only this little box is your safe haven. Although it's inappropriate for a living person to lie in a coffin like this, are you really alive? Chu Qing glanced at the prompt in the Book of Life and Death but paid it no heed. He couldn't help but smile. At this moment, the shift in the feedback from the Book of Life and Death from its previous subjective perspective precisely illustrates the unique nature of the current situation. Only under special circumstances will the text in the Book of Life and Death undergo this transformation. This is a cemetery you prepared for yourself. You know, to survive in a place like this, to deal with those strange things, the only way is to become something even more strange than them. Streams of yin energy entered your body from within this coffin. You discover that you don't reject these eerie things that sustain them. In fact, for some reason, you even welcome their arrival with great joy. The birth date and time of death on the tombstone are enough for you to draw upon their power. However, you must also understand that seeking to draw upon this power will inevitably attract the covetous eyes and attention of that terrifying entity outside. To gain power, one must inevitably pay a price. This is only natural. So be prepared to fight for your life. Unfortunately, this preface to the Tomb Keeper's career change was not accurate for Chu Qing. Indeed, there were 5 strange things outside his coffin. Moreover, they are all extremely vicious and terrifyingly bizarre. However, even though these strange beings knew he was inside the coffin and could sense the power of yin energy entering the coffin and his body through the birth date and time of death on the tombstone, they dared not make the slightest move. Seeking survival amidst death, for Chu Qing, this difficult and dangerous job change ceremony for others was nothing more than a formality. However, the chilling air currents still made Chu Qing shiver. The yin energy, these strange elements and the traces of their use, entered Chu Qing's body. The human body is believed to contain yin energy, which can significantly reduce lifespan and even attract strange attention. There is only one way to solve this, that's a ghostly profession. Time passed slowly, and in the blink of an eye, an hour and a half had gone by. Nothing in the outside world seems to have affected you. You are lucky, too. There's more than one being wandering outside. They either didn't notice you or ignored you. In short, you seem to be safe. At the same time as this method enters your body, the yin energy is slowly condensing, and within this yin energy, you sense an indescribable change. In this half-human, half-ghost state, you seem to have mastered some kind of ability. In a way, you feel a connection with the very essence of the earth beneath you. It's an indescribable feeling. You gradually adapt to this change, but you don't know what it truly means. This is your capital for survival in this terrifying era to come. Chu Qing ignored the useless feedback and prompts from the Book of Life and Death for a long time, and instead closed her eyes, as if she had already fallen asleep in the coffin. The Tomb Keeper's yin-based abilities are slowly coalescing within him. He didn't know how much time had passed, but it was clear that, based on the previous hint, the Gravedigger's job advancement ceremony was drawing to a close. Engrave a stone tablet, record the birth date, take a memorial photo, preserve life, and guard death. At this moment, you seem to have truly become a dead person. However, as time passed, you felt a special power awakening within your body and your soul. This ability is so magical, so captivating, so irresistible. This ability is known as a ghostly job. And the power of this underworld profession that you possess is called the Guardian of the Graveyard. The Gravedigger guards not only the tombs, but also death itself, and everything that comes with it. Do you know what that is? Don't be afraid, don't panic. You understand how noble and secretive your profession is. So your unwavering determination when you chose it is worthy of the abilities this profession bestows upon you, isn't it? In their minds, accompanied by the subtitles of the Book of Life and Death, special abilities appeared as if by instinct. The Gravedigger. Chu Qing clenched her fists instinctively. However, the prompts from the Book of Life and Death continued to appear, and the knowledge of the underworld duties belonging to the Tomb Keeper also kept flooding into Chu Qing's mind. O Gravedigger, the spirits that grow alongside the tombs are your greatest support. Guardian of the tomb within the tomb's boundaries, you possess extraordinary enhancements and regeneration. O Gravediggers, your boundless energy makes you independent of the sleep of mortals. O Gravedigger, at that fleeting juncture of dawn and night, you must faithfully fulfill your duty to reap your reward. Gravekeeper, your life ended the moment your name was inscribed on your tombstone. Your continued existence is a gift from death. Gravekeeper, you are the first Gravekeeper born in this world. Death itself and the countless sleeping inhabitants, in their appreciation and gratitude, bestowed upon you a special gift. A gift of being a gravedigger from the deepest darkness. Hopefully you deserve his and their appreciation and gratitude. Gravekeeper, it's time for you to awaken. Inside the dark coffin, a blood-red gaze slowly opened, accompanied by a slight upturn of the corners of a mouth. Well, I can't see any comments. Is anyone here? This new author is so worried. Inside the pitch-black coffin, Chu Qing lay inside completely still. He felt the power of the underworld that was completely different from that of the paper craftsman. At that moment, he felt as if he could grasp the entire area of Bashan Cemetery as clearly and meticulously as if it were the palm of his hand. This ability, which resembled that of a bound spirit, made Chu Qing clearly understand what the gravedigger's power was. However, he still raised his arm, and the Book of Life and Death, along with his thoughts and ideas, gave him the most direct and detailed feedback and introduction. Chu Qing, rank 9th grade. Lifespan in the underworld, 1 year's lifespan in the living world, none. Tomb Keeper underworld role, sealing life and guarding death, hence the title Tomb Keeper. Lifespan in the Yang realm is consumed and completely converted into Yin lifespan, consuming 1 day's Yin lifespan each day. Sealed life ability. Within the cemetery under one's jurisdiction, all physical attributes are enhanced, sleep time requirements are greatly reduced, and the recovery speed of all statuses is greatly increased. Guardian of Death duty. At dawn, ensure all the supernatural beings in the tombs are listed, thereby gaining Yin lifespan. For each rank 9 supernatural being present, 1 day of Yin lifespan is gained at the turn of dawn each day. The power level of supernatural beings in the tombs can be actively suppressed. Current mausoleum area, 400 mu. Tomb Spirit Control Ghost Taming Technique. Allows you to inscribe a bizarre being who fully understands your killing rules on your own tombstone, thus achieving control and mastery. You can only control one at the current rank. However, tomb spirits can only move and survive within the tomb's boundaries, and they receive a bonus from the Tomb Guardian's ability to seal life, which also increases the weight of their rule-based abilities. Current Tomb Spirit none. Symbiotic state. Lifespan is greatly reduced, allowing complete control over the blood-eyed demon. Status unknown. Promotion requirements unknown. Note, dear Sir Madam, you have taken the first step on the path to greatness, and it is my highest honor to serve you. These represent all of Chu Qing's abilities under normal circumstances. This is the unseen duty of the Tomb Keeper. Normally, the Guardian's divine power and blessings can only be exerted within the area of a mausoleum. The same applies to tomb raiders, which is why the profession of Tomb Keeper is extremely unreliable. Not to mention the professional authority of guarding death. In a single day, a 9th-rank supernatural being can only provide a mere 1 day of lifespan in the underworld. Is this enough for anyone? Normally, a 9th-rank supernatural being consumes 1 day's worth of Yin lifespan in a single day. It is only because earthbound spirits and strange beings like the Yin God of Wealth and the Faceless Ghost, who cannot move freely, have their Yin lifespan reduced by half each day. Otherwise, with these daily earnings, it would probably be insufficient to support even the 9th-rank monsters in this tomb, let alone himself and his tomb spirit. The gravedigger is considered one of the most unfortunate and deplorable professions, and for good reason. If there isn't something entirely new below, even Chu Qing would have to consider whether to occasionally let these strange creatures go out for a feast in order to supply them with their lifespan. However, aside from all the ability descriptions for the Gravekeeper's underworld duties mentioned above, the most important thing is undoubtedly the reward for being the first Gravekeeper. This reward was not some kind of funerary object or strange clue that Chu Qing had imagined. Rather, it was a special ability belonging to the Tomb Keeper that he had never seen before. A glimpse into the underworld ability. Having received the gift of death, you know how to make the supernatural more perfectly integrated into your tomb. You can observe the construction requirements of a perfectly matched advanced tomb based on the different states of the supernatural's abilities, and consume your lifespan to modify it. The eerie presence within grants a significant increase in daily lifespan for those who guard it, and also increases the chances of the eerie entity advancing in rank. Once the eerie entity reaches complete fusion, the Guardian can control and manipulate it without any loss. Currently, only the construction requirements for the 9th grade mysterious high-level tomb can be observed. That's right. This ability, a glimpse into the underworld, was the reward for the first Tomb Keeper. It's not about improving combat power, but about expanding the abilities of the Tomb Guardians. However, the benefits it brings are immeasurable. Needless to say, the value of yin shu, a type of paper money used in the underworld, is immense, especially after being converted into ghost money, which serves as a form of hard currency in the supernatural world. And the chance of gaining a mysterious promotion is even more rare. And then there's the last one, which is even more ambiguous, but also has an even more incredible effect. Is this the reward for the first Tomb Keeper? He suddenly remembered Ding Zai again. Ding Zai had told him about the ceremony and requirements that led to his ascension to the throne of Biancheng. All that's needed is to build your own city of the unjustly dead. I wonder if King Biancheng, having reached the first rank, also possessed abilities similar to a corner of the underworld at that time. If so, does this ability mean that he, as a 9th-rank Tomb Guardian, is already on par with the first-rank King Biancheng in terms of rank? Thinking of this, Chu Qing gasped and smiled. That's something to look forward to. However, anticipation is for the future. What we should do now is to transform the prototype of the death apartment into our own grave ghost as soon as possible. Thinking of this, Chu Qing lifted the coffin lid and stood up. And Ryuxu's face was deathly pale. She had never felt so helpless before. She now fully understood just how terrifying Chu Qing truly was. It turns out that without Chu Qing, this place is a veritable hell. This Baishan cemetery is many times more terrifying than that taxi with license plate number 40,004. The black crows in the sky, the unbridled gaze of the god of wealth, the large red lanterns that had somehow appeared overhead, the constantly shifting blood-red characters, and the faceless, illusory figure she was using as a talisman at this very moment. On her book of life and death, lines of text flashed. Can money really buy everything? Perhaps, but the danger you face is far too great. You only have 1 month of lifespan left, and after being converted by the faceless demon, you only have a mere 15 days left. After all, the lifespan you converted in this way is of extremely poor quality. The faceless demon has begun to reconsider whether it should risk facing the monsters, who are already eager to tear you apart for the sake of a few more years of its lifespan. Feeling the prompts from the Book of Life and Death, and Ryuxu wanted to curse. This was the 3rd time she had transferred her lifespan to the underworld, paying the faceless ghost for it. It may not seem like much, but the conversion between yin lifespan and yang lifespan in the Book of Life and Death is not a simple 1-to-1 ratio at all. For each month of yin lifespan, she changed it 3 times, sacrificing a full 3 years of yang lifespan. The previous day's lifespan in the underworld wasn't even enough to fill a tooth gap, so he had already paid a full 3 years worth of lifespan in the human world to convert it. It's already 2:15 and Chu Qing, why hasn't Chu Qing come out yet? And Ryuxu complained incessantly. In this brush with death, you sense that if you escape this danger, you will gain a completely new powers. This power is called the Underworld Duty, and your job in the underworld is to buy lives. Those who buy lives do so by exchanging money with the spirits, exchanging goods and resources to purchase a life. You need to communicate with countless eerie entities using willpower and cunning, although some of them don't want to communicate. They just want a feast. Finally, amidst this prompt, just as Ryuxu was about to activate the Book of Life and Death again to exchange for another year of lifespan, a voice as beautiful as heavenly music appeared. Click. The Book of Life and Death, which had just fallen silent, suddenly began flashing rapidly with subtitles, as if it had been prepared all along. You who buy life, that mill-pushing demon you command for money, is the very thing you rely on to guarantee your life. My friend, you possess an affability that others lack. They see you as one of their own. Those who seek to buy their lives remember this: money is everything. With money, you can make the devil turn the millstone. Without money, you'll be the one turning the millstone. O buyer of life, in your trade with humans and the supernatural, you will receive your due reward. You, the one who bought your lives, are the first person in this world to be born into this world. As a token of appreciation and gratitude, money itself, along with countless eager traders, bestowed upon you a special gift, a gift of life in the deepest darkness. Hopefully, you deserve his and their appreciation and gratitude. O life buyer, the awakening of an existence will completely erase all your current predicaments and dangers. Go thank him. As someone who has bought their life, submitting to the strong is not shameful. The eerie, chilling atmosphere vanished completely, and Ryuxu knelt down on the ground, panting heavily. The next moment, a figure slowly emerged from the pitch-black coffin at midnight. Chu Qing emerged from the darkness once more. All the eeriness vanished into complete silence at that moment. The owner of those blood-red eyes has become even more powerful, and the blood-red eyes that once threatened their lives have also become even more powerful. Irresistible, unable to resist. Chu Qing glanced casually at Ryuxu, who was covered in cold sweat, then his blood-red eyes locked onto her, instantly discerning all of Ryuxu's condensed abilities. Ryuxu. Rank 9th grade. Lifespan in the Underworld. None lifespan in the living world, none pension in the Underworld 10 years. Life Buyer Underworld Official. The Life Buyer communicates with the Underworld through money, exchanging goods and services to purchase a life. Both physical and mental lifespans are consumed. The body's condition and appearance do not change or age with the passage of time. Every 5 days, 1 day's worth of Underworld money is automatically consumed to buy another life. Death occurs after all Underworld money is used up. Using money to communicate with the Underworld ability increases acceptance of the supernatural and decreases hostility towards them, allows for some insight into their intentions, movements, and rules, and enables initial reassurance and communication. When exchanging yin life points for hell money, the exchange rate increases to 3:1. Exchange of goods and bad resources, job title. Each completed transaction with the mysterious entity will grant a portion of the profits, which will contribute to your own lifespan. Money makes the world go round, ghost control technique, consumes half of your own lifespan and spirit money to control the selected ghost. Only one ghost can be controlled at the current level. Current ghost. Nuns. Abundant wealth ability. Increases the interest rate on all ghost money in your possession, granting you 0.05% of the current total ghost money as monthly interest. Additionally, you can briefly control a strange entity using ghost money. The duration of control depends on the amount of ghost money consumed. Physical contact is required to control this ability. The interest rate on the ghost money increases with the buyer's rank. Status survived but mentally and physically exhausted. Promotion requirements unknown. Note, human, you actually granted a woman such powerful abilities and a profession. Not bad, quite to my liking, quickly take her in. Chu Qing ignored the blood-eyed demon's sarcastic remarks. He was fully aware of the abilities of the person who bought his life. This wasn't a profession specializing in combat. What he hadn't expected was, it was the reward for the first person who bought his life. It's actually a skill, and it also appears to be an extremely powerful ability, the interest rate on ghost money. There is an exchange rate between ghost money and spirit money. This is one of the most frustrating aspects of the eerie world for those who control ghosts. To exchange for something, you need to exchange your lifespan in the Underworld for ghost money. However, the conversion rate for exchanging lifespan in the Underworld for ghost money is a terrifyingly high 12:1. That's right, a year's worth of yin lifespan can only be converted into 1 month's worth of yin lifespan ghost money. And this 1 month's worth of ghost money, after being absorbed by other supernatural beings or ghost controllers, will also only grant them 1 month's worth of yin lifespan. Such a ridiculously low success rate can only be improved through a few methods, one of which is the Underworld job sequence of those who buy life. There is also the ultimate version of the black copper coin artifact puzzle that Chu Qing possessed, a terrifying treasure controlled by the proprietress of Narrow World. However, since ghost money is such a rare yet indispensable commodity, it can be accumulated through this interest rate. If this woman had a ghost money lifespan of 1,000 or 800 years, wouldn't she be able to collect 5 or 6 months' worth of ghost money in a single month? It may not sound like much, but it also has the effect of upgrading the grade and increasing the interest rate. And the future benefits will be much more than that. This ability has great potential. For a moment, Chu Qing was even a little reluctant to let this woman become a trial participant in the death apartment system. No one would complain about having too much money for the dead or for the dead. However, at this stage, it's impossible to get Chu Qing to completely trust the other party and entrust all his extra lifespan to Ryuxu. While this ability is rare, it is not irreplaceable. Even with this in mind, he still didn't forget his main task. The prototype of the blood letter ghost in the death apartment, something he had been thinking about ever since his rebirth, almost on par with the blood-eyed dragon lord, became his greatest scheme and gain in the early stages. Today, at this moment of becoming the gravedigger, he will finally become his grave ghost. King Dinxi of Biancheng, the best choice for a tomb spirit that he has been longing for day and night. He walked quickly to the door of the security room. The blood-red characters seemed to sense Chu Qing's approach and slowly appeared on the glass. The Scarlet Ghost's killing rules are not executed in a continuous manner, which is the biggest difference between it and other supernatural phenomena. With Chu Qing's summons, almost as soon as Chu Qing reached out his hand, the handful of blood-written words appeared in his palm as if they were alive. The next moment, Chu Qing, accompanied by the blood-stained ghost, arrived directly in front of his stone tablet. It stands right in the middle of Beishan Cemetery. He slowly squatted down in front of it, glanced at the blood-written ghost in his hand, and supported the huge stone tablet. With a thought, the stone tablet seemed to be cleaved open by an invisible carving knife. A new line of text appeared below the stone tablet. The font was small. Grave Demon. Blood-writing demons. The moment those words appeared, the handful of blood in Chu Qing's hand seemed to boil instantly, as if it were slightly resisting the infiltration of that strange power. However, this resistance was not very strong. First, the Scarlet Ghost also needs to find a place to live as soon as possible, which is inevitable for a special and eerie species of earthbound spirit. Secondly, Chu Qing's aura was indeed compatible with it. Facing Chu Qing, it did not show any particular aggression. Or rather, the death apartment was not like other strange creatures that were so eager to devour human lives. As long as it follows the guidance of fate, it will naturally gain longevity and grow. Finally, streams of blood flowed slowly, entering the carved characters on the tombstone. The next moment, Chu Qing felt a unique connection with the blood character ghost. Every drop of blood on his body seemed to have merged with the blood demon's true form. It seemed that the blood he had previously squeezed out had, through this same method, reintegrated with him. However, that's not the most important thing. Most importantly, the instant the Scarlet Ghost became the Grave Ghost, besides the enhancement of its abilities, a previously unseen mystery was slowly unveiled regarding the Scarlet Ghost. Promotion requirements: complete more than 10 death guides. Additionally, obtain a rank 9 mysterious beast with the name Gate to absorb the advancement puzzle piece. Currently completed. One time, even Chu Qing couldn't help but smile when he saw the requirements for advancement to the Blood Demon. Is the character Chinese letter, Door Strange, so the Blood Demon's promotion requirements have been found. The only question is, what are the promotion requirements for his other ally, the Blood-Eyed Dragon Lord? Chu Qing didn't think too much about it. She would find her way eventually. He glanced at the empty yet not desolate Beishan Cemetery. It wouldn't be long before it was bustling with activity. Thinking of this, he ignored Ryuxu, who was still confusedly sensing the yin power of the life buyer, and lightly jumped down, landing on the closed, flat coffin lid. That night, it was a night etched in the memories of countless people. It was a night that left a deep and lasting mark on the river of time. The long night is not yet over. Chu Qing gazed at the sky with his blood-red eyes, looking at the gloomy night sky where even the moon seemed to be obscured by yin energy, and couldn't help but sigh softly. The bleak autumn wind blows again today, but the world has changed. Wow, what a beautiful day. Can anyone tell me where that stupid mobile virus that keeps cursing me to die came from? Holy crap, you have that too. I thought it was one of my cheat codes. No, what does this say? Why hasn't anyone made a statement yet? Heh, a cheat system, huh? Humanity's about to be destroyed. I don't care anymore. I'm going to have some fun before I die. F***K, what's wrong with this world? The very next morning, no, it started circulating late at night. The entire planet, countless worlds and nations, and countless ordinary people were all discussing the suddenly appearing Book of Life and Death. This thing, which seems to be a virus, has sent a chill through the entire world. However, no official word has come from any of the countries involved. Whether this thing is a technological breakthrough joke or a bizarre occurrence, no one knows. Even the authorities couldn't provide an explanation. Finally, at 7:30, a time when the sky should have been bright long ago but was just sunrise, the news was broadcast. However, the beautiful and well-known news anchor from the morning broadcast couldn't offer any convincing explanation. The only warning she gave about the Book of Life and Death was, never redeem your lifespan, don't be fooled by this. Clearly, during those 7 hours from midnight to 7 a.m., many people likely risked their lives to arrive at this conclusion. The whole world is talking about it. However, this is only the beginning. It took the world more than half a month to fully accept all of this, to confront the bizarre reality, and to take corresponding measures. It's not fair to blame the official response for being slow. In fact, given Daxia's massive population, it's already one of the fastest acting official governments on the entire planet. So after a busy night, Chu Qing glanced at the morning news and online forums, group chats, Weibo, and other public platforms, but didn't pay much attention to it after that. In his previous life, he was perhaps one of these people. When the new world order and rules arrive, those who react first and take the first action are more likely to become the dominant force in the new world. Of course, the chances of dying are also greater, and Ryuxu has already left. This isn't a sanctuary for him, and Ryuxu has her own things to do. She also understood that the most urgent task now was to find a suitable supernatural being to become her mill-pushing ghost. As for Chu Qing's strange behavior at Beishan Cemetery, Chu Qing has already done more than enough for Ryuxu. If she has already become a Yin official and the first Yin official with special rewards at that, but is still unable to control the supernatural, then Chu Qing shouldn't worry about her. If he has to do everything, what use is Ryuxu to him? As for whether any other strange things can be found, with the arrival of the bazaar and the official start of the terrifying era, the number and frequency of bizarre occurrences will only increase, especially in a special location like Lowe's Angels. Finding a willing but servile person to push the millstone is not difficult. Chu Qing's mind wasn't really on Ryuxu right now, it was completely focused on something else, a glimpse into the underworld. The ability granted by this first tomb keeper allowed him to observe the strange and advanced construction requirements contained within the mausoleum. For Chu Qing, it was an extremely profitable deal, so he spent almost the entire night researching this ability. Currently, the only strange thing he has the opportunity to quickly satisfy is probably this thing in front of him. The dark bronze statue of the god of wealth wore a sinister smile, but if one were to sense anything, one would realize that this fellow was on the verge of tears. The black copper coin was finally returned to its rightful owner. The god of wealth no longer even had the right to keep it. Fortunately, this was the first thing Chu Qing was prepared to deal with. Indeed, based on the observations made through the corner of the underworld ability, the easiest condition for Chu Qing to meet is that of the underworld god of wealth. The Yin god of wealth, a unique and mysterious ninth-rank entity, is suitable for high-level tombs. Golden shrines. Golden shrine, a shrine entirely cast in gold, symbolizing boundless wealth. Construction requirements. 1 ton of gold, 100 days of lifespan, 1 square meter of floor space. Tomb effect. After the Yin wealth god resides there, after each day of guarding, the Yin wealth god gains an additional day of Yin lifespan, and the tomb keeper gains an additional day of Yin lifespan in hell money. The Yin wealth god's abilities are enhanced when he is in the shrine. Indeed, this requirement represents the lowest and simplest level of construction among the several bizarre tombs present, and it can be done with money. This reward is quite generous. The guards essentially made a net profit, and it was even converted directly into ghost money. The exchange rate for ghost money is outrageous. 1 day's worth of ghost money is equivalent to 12 days of the lifespan of the underworld. It's easy to imagine how attractive this thing was to Chu Qing. However, while 100 days of living in the underworld is manageable, where can we get the gold? Chu Qing rested her chin on her hand and searched for the price of gold. It costs less than 700 yuan per gram. The price per ton is 700 million tusk. Chu Qing smacked her lips. He had never seen so much money in his life. As for Ryuxu, even if she had money, she couldn't possibly have such a huge cash flow. Moreover, considering the realities of the world, it would be better for Ryuxu to keep her legitimate Lin family company. So where did he need to get such a windfall? Chu Qing naturally disdained to resort to underhanded methods. So where did this money, or rather so much gold, come from? The moment this thought crossed Chu Qing's mind, he suddenly sensed a peculiar fluctuation. The next moment his palms suddenly became incredibly hot. A streak of blood seeped out and appeared directly on the glass door not far away. It is none other than the current tomb mystery, the blood-stained mystery. Before Chu Qing could react, the blood-red characters slowly began to move just like they had the previous night. Location, Jingxiu Manor No. 2 Luoyang Villa District. Time limit, arrive before 10 p.m. tonight. Mission objective, locate the strange entity within the manor and capture or eliminate it. Quest reward, large amount of gold. Mission failure penalty. Death guidance will not be activated again for 10 days. Staring at the blood-red words on the glass, Chu Qing was stunned for a moment before finally realizing, somewhat belatedly, the terrifying power of the blood-word ghost, which involved fate. He didn't have time to think much, but instead opened local forums and many websites in Lowe's Angels and started searching for this number 2 splendid manor in Lowe's Angels. However, upon looking at it, the first thing he noticed was the most prominent message at the very top. A bounty notice. Zhou Yingzhu, owner of number 2 Jingxiu Manor Villa, is offering a reward of 10 million yuan for a ritual to exorcise evil spirits. Zhou Yingzhu. Chu Qing frowned slightly. This name, he felt like he'd heard it somewhere before. Jinxiu Manor. This is the most luxurious and extravagant mansion in all of Los Angeles. Although it is not the central capital of Zhongyuan province, Luoyang, as an ancient capital of multiple dynasties, is actually more livable. In the living room of Villa No. 2, a woman who looked to be around 30 years old held a mobile phone, her face showing weariness and helplessness. Sayun, don't worry, this time the person who came is a renowned expert from our Central Plains province. He will definitely be able to find and eliminate that evil thing. Pa, you shameless girl, I'm keeping you company, aren't I? What do you mean by lacking a man? You're really impure. I haven't slept well at your place these past few days either. I know, and staying with you all this time has been too much trouble for you. Hee hee, okay, the doorbell rang, I guess the person's here. I'm not chatting with you anymore, let's meet at the beauty salon tomorrow morning. The woman hung up the phone and sighed. However, before the call interface displaying Su Sayun could disappear, the entire phone screen instantly went black, and blood-red text appeared on the screen. Foolish woman. Do you want to find some good-for-nothings to deal with that horrible thing? But it's all right, bringing some free kills might delay your death, because you know you can't escape, right? So if you ask me, your best course of action is to order a coffin right now and prepare for death, so that no one will claim your body. Of course, you can also choose to sacrifice 20 years of your mortal lifespan to convert it into yin lifespan. I might be able to tell you how to advance to the next rank. At that time, you might have the power to contend with them. Zhou Yingzhu's face turned extremely pale, and the veins on her pale hand gripping her phone bulged. She didn't really understand why, even after such a strange thing appeared, her best friend still believed that there were no strange things in the world, but rather some kind of messy virus. However, her house was indeed not clean. Others may not know, but she does, because in her dream she had felt that undisguised malice. That's why, just as the Book of Life and Death said, she knew she couldn't escape. Could it be that, as written in the Book of Life and Death, I really have to pay off 20 years of my lifespan? But that's 20 years. She only had a little over 30 years left to live. If you dedicate 20 years at once, won't you turn into an old lady overnight? With that thought in mind, Zhou Yingzhu no longer hesitated. When the doorbell rang again, she pressed the button to open the door and then went outside. For nearly a mile, a Range Rover slowly pulled up. Zhou Yingzhu greeted the vehicle with a broad smile, watching as a white-browed monk in a robe stepped out. Master Zhishin, you've finally arrived. The white-browed monk named Zhishin twitched his eyebrows, seemingly unaccustomed to the newly dyed color. However, today's task is clearly not one that can be missed. Amitabha, my disciple, told me this before and I didn't believe it, but seeing you today, Master Zhou's forehead is dark. I fear he may face a fatal disaster. Zhou Yingzhu's face looked bitter. Master, let's go inside and talk. Master Zhishin gave a wink to his assistant and disciple behind him before following him inside. It must be said that Master Zhishin's professional skills are absolutely top-notch. Once inside, a few words were enough to convince Zhou Yingzhu, the former big sister of Zhongyuan province, to nod repeatedly and believe him without a doubt. Even before the matter was resolved, Zhou Yingzhu casually transferred a deposit of 1 million yuan to them. Master Zhishin took out a brand new iPhone 17 and couldn't stop smiling as he looked at the large sum of money that had been deposited directly into his account. However, the $1 million transfer quickly went black, and the infamous mobile virus that had been circulating since this morning reappeared. You used incredibly skillful rhetoric and professional scamming techniques to swindle a large sum of money. You should be proud of your silver tongue. However, you've overlooked one thing. So, what would you do if there really were ghosts here? Are you ready for your first ever career assessment? Looking at the bloody words on it, Master Zhishin frowned slightly. He was not young and did not know much about these trendy gadgets, but according to his disciples, he seemed to have spent the whole morning studying this thing. I have no idea what it is. As for whether ghosts exist, Master Zhishin clearly didn't care. He had been practicing for 20 years, didn't he know whether ghosts existed or not? However, he was too lazy to think about it too much. He placed his phone on the coffee table in front of him, just about to get to know this Miss Zhou better. According to legend, this person's origins are extremely special and are related to a major case in the Central Plains province. Such stunning beauty, if only. Unfortunately, just as he was about to speak, a somewhat panicked voice suddenly came from the walkie-talkie by the door. Miss Zhou, a taxi has driven right into your estate. Broken ins. Zhou Yingzhu was taken aback. How did a taxi manage to force its way into the gates of her splendid manor number 2? Did they just break down the door? That's ridiculous. Clearly, Zhou Yingzhu had no idea that her guess was actually quite close. However, she didn't have time to think about this problem. The sound of an engine outside the door grew closer and closer, and then it stopped directly in front of the villa. Through the living room's floor-to-ceiling windows, you can immediately see a blue and white taxi, a very distinctive feature of Lowe's Angels. A young man in a black trench coat got out of the taxi. Even more strangely, the young man also had something extremely peculiar in his hand, which appeared to be a statue of the god of wealth. Then, the young man walked in as if no one else was there. Zhou Yingzhu frowned slightly, then relaxed a little because she had to admit this young man was incredibly handsome. However, she still asked with a cold expression, "Who are you? How did you get in?" "Who else could it be but Chu Qing?" He calmly glanced at Zhou Yingzhu before him and already knew what was going on before saying, "My name is Chu Qing. I heard from Sister Yun that you need exorcisms here, is that right? I have some knowledge in this area, so I volunteered to come." Prying it open, after hearing the title Sister Yun, Zhou Yingzhu's wariness lessened considerably. However, Master Zhishan, who was still sitting on the living room sofa not far away, was clearly getting restless. "Young benefactor, with this old monk here, you needn't trouble yourself. This matter is not something a novice like you can handle." As soon as he finished speaking, Chu Qing didn't seem to care at all, only glancing at the old monk with a smile. The old monk glanced back indifferently, but just then his phone, which was on the coffee table, started flashing again, involuntarily drawing his attention. "You're lucky. Your first ever career assessment seems to have taken a turn for the better. Of course, you'll need to find a way to take back what you just said. Alternatively, you could kneel down and beg for forgiveness for your recent offense." The old monk stared at his own phone on the coffee table, his eyes darting around. Zhou Yingzhu, who was standing to the side, had already spoken up. "Master, this lady was introduced by my best friend. Please do me a favor." Master Zhishan feigned displeasure, looked at Chu Qing, and then said, "Since that's the case, very well. Please come out for a moment, benefactor, and I'll tell you about benefactor Zhou's situation." Chu Qing really couldn't understand what the big monk meant, but she followed him out. Then the head monk bypassed the disciples and assistants who were still seemingly preparing for the ritual, and arrived at the empty manor outside the villa. He glanced at Zhou Yingzhu, who hadn't come out yet, before whispering to Chu Qing, "Brother, let me know, how about we split this deal 50-50? This fellow spoke again, his previous solemn demeanor completely gone. Chu Qing looked at him with interest. "What are you talking about?" The senior monk immediately took out his phone. The Scarlet Book of Life and Death text was still there. "This thing, as soon as you arrived, it gave this notification. Goodness, before I had to go and fool people. Now that we have this high-tech stuff, there's no need for words, it works perfectly. So teach me how to do this, and for this deal. I'll take 30%, you take 70%, okay?" Looking at the monk, who seemed to have made a great decision, Chu Qing finally couldn't help but laugh. He really likes this interesting teammate. I hope the little one who came with him likes it too. Thinking of this, Chu Qing didn't answer him. Instead, she slightly raised her head. Unbeknownst to her, a jet-black raven had already perched on the eaves of the manor, meeting Chu Qing's gaze and emitting a series of piercing cries. Quack! Its cry was hoarse like the low tolling of a death knell, a hint from the Book of Life and Death. Chu Qing had no other options. This is something he can't control right now. The Book of Life and Death can be used to sense the strange quantity and aura emanating from Chu Qing. Therefore, there is a general idea of how to judge someone's strength. Unless one is 2 ranks higher than the owner of the Book of Life and Death, then reaching the middle 3rd rank, or the 6th rank, means that the Book of Life and Death's detection can be blocked to some extent. Otherwise, there are some strange things that can be shielded from perception. Even so, the Book of Life and Death can still detect these reasons, and therefore it is inevitable that it will give the original owner a hint. However, it is precisely because of the Book of Life and Death that many people, like Master Zhishan, who are only half-believing, are eliminated in the early stages. When the Age of Terror arrived in the early stages, many ordinary people relied on the Book of Life and Death to judge the situation, and indeed avoided many life-or-death crises. In other words, the Book of Life and Death significantly increased the survival rate of countless ordinary humans in the early stages. As for whether this thing would expose him or not, Chu Qing insisted that he didn't really care. He doesn't need to play dumb to outsmart others, nor does he need to perform miracles in front of others. Aside from his greatest aspiration of immortality and eternal life, Chu Qing's only current desire is the throne of king. "Young benefactor, what's the meaning of your smile? Say something, whether you agree or not." Chu Qing looked at him calmly, and when he met the latter's gaze, Master Zhishan felt a chill run down his spine. "Master, you must have made a lot of money from these things over the years, right?" It's all right, I didn't make much, not much at all. I'm just doing this for money. There are costs involved. To be honest, it was only a few thousand, See that car of mine. A Range Rover that costs over 2 million. Young benefactor, teach me this trick, and if you're willing, learn from me for 2 years. I guarantee that in less than 2 years, you'll be able to get one of these too. Master Zhishin said proudly. Chu Qing smiled again. Really, you've made quite a bit of money. Master, you're incredibly lucky. Seeing Chu Qing's intentions, Master Zhishin smiled. The little rascal was quite shrewd. He simply started telling Chu Qing about his experience, hoping to use this to build a relationship and obtain Chu Qing's high-tech. It must be said that the old monk was quite remarkable in this regard. This is similar to those lecturers who stand on the podium and tell you that going all in is a wise strategy. After the two agreed to their agreement, the head monk began to perform the rituals in the living room with his disciple. To be honest, despite the commotion, they did a fairly decent job. Zhou Yingzhu, on the other hand, seemed quite interested in Chu Qing, who was always smiling and watching everyone in the living room. Xiao Chu, what is your relationship with Su Yun? Sister Yun is my landlady. Though, is it really that simple? If that's the case, why would she tell you about me? Zhou Yingzhu clearly didn't believe it. Chu Qing smiled. Actually, it has nothing to do with Sister Yun. I came here because I saw your job posting on the local website, Sister Zhou. As for how I found out about your relationship with Sister Yun, it's because I saw you two together at Happiness Garden before. Zhou Yingzhu was taken aback, not expecting this young man to confess so easily. She raised her eyebrows. Little Chu, then I won't send you away, just don't offend Master Zhishin again. After lunch, for science sake, you can leave. She appeared kind, but it was clear that she was fundamentally different from Su Xian, the landlady who was truly gentle and serene. Her eyes held an absolute warning and an air of superiority. Chu Qing knew that this woman wasn't joking, however he didn't care. Sister Zhou, do you have a lot of gold here? Upon hearing this, Zhou Yingzhu's expression remained unchanged. However, Chu Qing clearly saw that Zhou Yingzhu's pupils contracted slightly, and the next moment, a murderous aura flashed beneath her dark pupils. That's right, it's murderous intent. This woman has a history of killing. And there's definitely more than one. It turned out to be a Black Widow. Interesting. That makes sense, though. Even if Chu Qing didn't know Zhou Yingzhu's background, if she were just an ordinary woman, she wouldn't be able to manage such a family business. Putting everything else aside, this magnificent manor alone is worth tens of millions. But so what? Chu Qing didn't care at all. In fact, she even slightly shifted her gaze from the one that was spying on the monk's ritual to look at everything in the villa. A chilling, grayish-white aura swirled in his eyes. Strangely, however, he hadn't seen any leaking yin energy in this villa estate since he entered. What is that eerie creature? Chu Qing glanced at the yin god of wealth statue that he had placed down after entering the room. Yin Caishen's lifespan is the highest among all his strange abilities. Although his killing rules are not as immediate as those of the head lantern or the blood-eyed ghost, they are by no means weak. In that short time, the monks and disciples who were setting up the ritual, including Master Zhishin, all stopped glancing at the god of wealth more than once. They have clearly been drawn in and consumed by greed. Most importantly, the killing rules of the yin god of wealth are more exaggerated for those who are greedy for money. And clearly, Master Zhishin and his team did not disappoint in their greed for money, not to mention the mark of the crow. Of course, the purpose of the yin god of wealth's arrival was not for this. This thing is extremely sensitive to wealth, and Chu Qing wanted to see if the yin god of wealth could find gold, which is a symbol of wealth in the secular world. Based on the death instructions from the last Bloodlitter quest, the reward for this quest clearly didn't just appear out of thin air. As Chu Qing looked around, Zhou Yingzhu, who had been silent all along, finally spoke slowly. How did you know? Her voice was low. Chu Qing frowned slightly, a barely perceptible red glint flashing in her eyes before she finally breathed a sigh of relief. For a moment, he genuinely believed that Zhou Yingzhu was the strange imposter in this villa estate. However, Chu Qing's patience had clearly run out. He wasn't interested in what was strange about this place. If he could, he would take the gold with him. The deaths of these people here were none of his concern. However, it's unclear whether others have also lost patience and interest. The next moment, Zhou Yingzhu turned around and looked at Master Zhishin and the others who were still busy setting up the ritual candlesticks. She suddenly spoke. Master Zhishin, I suddenly remembered that when I wasn't feeling well, I saw some things. Those things have been kept in the study upstairs, and I'm too afraid to go get them myself. Could you come with me to get them and have them blessed? Zhou Yingzhu smiled broadly, with a hint of pleading in her eyes, which made Master Zhishin and his disciples behind him instantly excited, eager to show off to this ageless beauty. Even Master Zhishin waved his hand. I see. Then Benefactor Zhou, please lead the way. Let this old monk see what kind of demons and monsters they are. Only Chu Qing narrowed her eyes slightly, looking intently at Zhou Yingzhu before her. So that's how it is. Zhou Yingzhu also looked at Chu Qing with a smile, but there was no smile in her eyes, only coldness as if she were looking at a dead person. Xiao Chu, why don't you come along too? We can leave together after we've finished watching. The woman emphasized the last three words, clearly implying something significant. Chu Qing's lips curled up. Okay. He didn't pay attention to Zhou Yingzhu's gaze, even though he understood the woman's deeper meaning. No wonder he told me to leave quickly because of Su Xian. The Black Widow is one of the most skilled hunters at creating traps and weaving webs to lure prey. The question remains, will this Black Widow be able to catch a spider hunter who is prepared in advance? On the second-floor staircase, figures followed one after another up the steps. Chu Qing walked at the very back, carrying the statue of the Yin god of wealth, and slowly made his way to the second floor. Everyone stood in front of a tightly closed door. Then, everyone could clearly see that even Zhou Yingzhu, who had maintained her composure throughout, couldn't help but take a deep breath, clearly extremely nervous. This scene made Master Zhishin's disciples and assistants a little nervous. Although I've followed my master for so many years, he's always said that there's nothing else of value in this world, and that feudal superstition is unacceptable. However, the strange thing that suddenly appeared this morning is still quite concerning. Crunch. Without giving the others any time to think, the door slowly opened. Before anyone knew it, Chu Qing's eyes were completely narrowed. He didn't rush in fact, he didn't even face the study door directly. As the saying goes, even a lion uses its full strength to hunt a rabbit. With so many others ahead of him to take the fall, why is he in such a hurry to go up? If these people risked their lives to uncover that bizarre rule of killing, then their deaths were worthwhile. However, he didn't see anything unusual. Even Master Zhishin, after entering the room, circled around it before saying, "Benefactor Zhou, where is that evil creature you spoke of?" However, Zhou Yingzhu ignored Master Zhishin and instead smiled at Chu Qing, who was still standing outside the door. "Xiao Chu, in your line of work, being so timid won't do." Chu Qing smiled and said, "Better safe than sorry." However, Chu Qing did not continue to hide, but followed Zhou Yingzhu into the study, which was even larger than the living rooms of other people's homes. In an instant, his gaze slowly shifted and locked onto something. An indescribable chill began to gradually spread. Sure enough, this woman already knew about the strange trail. It was a painting, a vertical scroll painting. The content of the painting is not particularly special. Zhang Kui riding a tiger, and it's quite obvious that this is an old thing, very old. Perhaps it's because the door is too open. The Zhang Kui in that painting of Zhang Kui riding a tiger appears extremely thin, but the tiger beneath this legendary judge is so lifelike that it seems to leap out of the painting and devour people alive. Chu Qing understood. "Benefactor Zhou, what kind of evil entity is it?" As expected, Zhou Yingzhu pointed to the area above, and there, it was indeed the painting of Zhang Kui riding a tiger. Master Zhishin glanced at the object and stepped forward slightly. Sure enough, almost the instant his gaze locked onto it, the tiger in the painting seemed to leap directly out of the painting, startling him so much that he quickly took a few steps back. He blinked, and before he knew it, beads of cold sweat had appeared on his forehead. Is it a hallucination, or what is it? He glanced at everyone else around him. Chu Qing had somehow taken a seat behind a tea table. Zhou Yingzhu stood at the doorway, while his assistants and disciples looked at him curiously. Clearly, they hadn't seen what had just happened, so it really was just an illusion. Master Zhishin coughed lightly and looked directly at the two people behind him, saying, "Shiming, Shiyuan, you two come here and take this picture down from the wall." "Oh yes." The two young monks quickly agreed, and then each stepped forward to the picture of Zhang Kui riding a tiger. He was about to reach out his hand. However, at that very moment, their movements came to a standstill. As if they had been frozen in place, they all stood motionless. At this moment, even Master Zhishin and his two remaining assistants realized that something was amiss. "Shiming, Shiyuan, what are you doing? Hurry up." However, before he could finish speaking, a terrifying roar echoed through the closed study. Roar. The roar was like a tiger descending the mountain. So piercing, so loud. However, the scene at this moment was incredibly bloody. Under the shocked and horrified gazes of Master Zhishin and his two remaining assistants, disciples Shiming and Shiyuan seemed to instantly recover from the state of being frozen in place. Then one of them clutched his stomach and the other touched his neck. The next second, a terrifying crimson spray erupted forth. One had a huge, penetrating wound in his abdomen, his intestines rotting and his stomach ruptured. The other was in an even worse state. His once bald head had completely disappeared without a trace. The spurting blood stained the painting of Zhang Kui riding a tiger. The rest remained completely untouched. Then the corpse seemed to be dragged by something. A piercing scream rang out, but it didn't come from Zhou Yingzhu, the only woman present. It came from Master Zhishin. Then, without even thinking, the white-browed master ran towards the door of Zhou Yingzhu's study. Then, the running body suddenly stopped in place, raised its hands, and slowly backed away. Zhou Yingzhu's expression was indifferent. A black pistol had appeared in her hand sometime during the night, and she coldly pointed it at Master Zhishin, who was trembling like a leaf. "Mr. Zhou, what are you doing? What are you doing? There's a ghost in this room and a ghost in that painting." Zhou Yingzhu said calmly, "I know, that's why I found a master to help me exorcise the ghost, right? Master, you've already taken the deposit. You're not planning to run away, are you?" "Deposit, yes, deposit." Master Zhishin quickly said, "Benefactor Zhou, I'll return your deposit. Find someone else for this job. By the way, isn't Chu Qing still here? I'll give him the money, go find him." His answer was a sharp, clear gunshot. Bang. Even Chu Qing was surprised that Zhou Yingzhu actually fired a shot. A scream like a pig being slaughtered, accompanied by the blood-red bullet hole in Master Zhishin's shoulder, proved where the shot had gone. "Master Zhishin, in Liucheng, and even in the Central Plains province, has anyone ever told you that my money, Zhou Yingzhu's money, isn't something I can just take or throw away as I please?" She then looked at the two equally terrified men. Her superb marksmanship and the confined space of the study clearly left them no room to fight back. "And you now go and take that painting down." However, having just understood the situation and witnessed Shi Yuan's fate, everyone was terrified that no one dared to make any further moves. Master Zhishin reacted extremely quickly. He immediately spotted Chu Qing, who was standing calmly to the side, even taking out a water bottle and pouring himself a glass of water. If ghosts really exist in this world, so was the message from that damn phone correct? Does this seemingly wicked young man actually possess some special skills? So he simply climbed over there. Young benefactor, you saved my life so you can have my Range Rover." Chu Qing glanced at the white-browed monk tugging at her trouser leg and almost burst out laughing. The Yin Wealth God's effects are quite effective, aren't they? At this critical juncture, this guy's only thought of giving himself a beat-up car. He smiled and nodded. "Rest assured, master." So he put down his water glass, took a sip, and then said, "Sister Zhou, how about we discuss something?" Zhou Yingzhu frowned, the black muzzle of her gun already pointed at Chu Qing. "Xiao Chu, I already told you I'd let you go first out of respect for Su Yun, so why are you courting death? As for them, do you know how many people that old bald monk has deceived these past few days? Furthermore, how many female followers did he deceive? And how many families were ruined and destroyed?" Chu Qing put down her water glass. "You've said that, but there's some truth to it. So don't worry, for Sister Yun's sake, as long as you give me what I want, I'll spare your life." Meeting Zhou Yingzhu's astonished gaze, Chu Qing continued, "What I want to discuss with you is something else. After those people were killed by that painted ghost inside, please leave their bodies behind. I have a little one here who's been starving." At this point, Chu Qing looked out the window of the study. Suddenly, a black crow appeared, its blood-red beak open, frantically pecking at the window, its eyes fixed on the splattered blood and the two corpses inside the room. That crazed look in his eyes sent chills down the spines of everyone present. Chu Qing walked to the window, opened it, and let Yagui in before turning back to continue. "Of course, if you, as an accomplice to the wicked, are unable to make this decision, then I will take matters into my own hands and personally talk to this little kitten." Tiger. In ancient times, it was revered by many people as the Mountain Lord. Extremely fierce and malevolent. Legend has it that a tiger that has become a spirit can transform the souls of those who die in its mouth into treacherous creatures, which it then uses to lure other humans into becoming its prey. The phrase "to act as an accomplice to a tyrant" originates from this. That's right. The Zhou Yingzhu standing before me is the Chang of the tiger in the painting. However, compared to the legendary ghosts and monsters, Zhou Yingzhu is still a living person at this moment. The reason for this is likely that it is merely a tiger in a painting, not a real tiger. The entire room fell silent. Holding a black pistol, Zhou Yingzhu was at a loss for what to do. She didn't know who Chu Qing was, nor did she know what gave Chu Qing such confidence. Inside the room, apart from Master Zhishin's constant howling, there was nothing else. As for Master Zhishin's other two assistants, they were clearly terrified at this moment. However, at that moment, a scarlet light finally emerged from Chu Qing's eyes and locked onto Zhou Yingzhu. In that instant, Zhou Yingzhu's brain was flooded with blood. Chu Qing suddenly leaped to her side and snatched the black pistol from her hand. This scene happened in the blink of an eye, yet it secretly relieved Chu Qing. In fact, without carrying a human head lantern and being unable to activate the darkness under the lamp ability, this thing can actually cause harm to oneself. Now that the pistol is out of reach, The only thing left that poses a threat to him in the entire room is something else. However, this scene undoubtedly gave some people present a misconception. Upon seeing Chu Qing's actions, Master Zhishan was overjoyed, and even his two assistants came to their senses, looking at Chu Qing with immense delight. Young brother, I will surely repay you handsomely in the future for what you have done today. After saying that, he was about to lead his two assistants out the door again. Unfortunately, bang! A similarly crisp gunshot rang out, and through the smoke of the gunfire, a pair of red eyes calmly looked at the three of them. When did I say that the three of you could leave? Young man, aren't you? Chu Qing smiled as she looked at Master Zhishan, whose face was pale from blood loss, and then continued with a smile. Now the three of you go and take that painting down. Despair, at this moment, only despair remained in the hearts of the three people present. However, the slowly pointed gun barrel and the indifferent, heartless face made it clear to everyone that their fate remained unchanged. Only the person wielding the butcher's knife behind the chopping block was now someone else. The weak don't even have the power to decide how they die. Therefore, even if Master Zhishan lay down on the ground and pretended to faint, the result was simply that Chu Qing aimed at his thigh and fired a shot. When the gun was pointed at the two men, the two assistants finally couldn't hold back any longer. They ran desperately towards the drawing, trying to take it down from the wall. However, the final result remained unchanged. It was still that incredibly gruesome way of dying and that terrifyingly huge wound. Then Chu Qing, seeing Master Zhishan still writhing on the ground in pain, finally couldn't hold back any longer. He picked him up and threw him in front of the painting. Ah. The old monk's eyes held resentment and misunderstanding. He couldn't understand why there really were strange things in this world. I don't understand why these two people are even more wicked than a devil. At this moment, however, he forgot about the countless broken families he had manipulated and the many women he had deceived under the guise of blessing. To them, how much better was this wise and benevolent monk than these strange creatures? In the end, all 5 people in the room died in the same way. They were still attacked by a ferocious beast, losing their lives to its sharp teeth and claws. Just then, the being behind the scenes, seemingly extremely satisfied with the abundance of their prey, let out a satisfied roar in the study where only Chu Qing and Zhou Yingzhu remained. Roar! The sound was like a tiger descending the mountain. In the crimson-splattered Zhang Kui riding a tiger image, the tiger's figure becomes increasingly lifelike, while Zhang Kui's figure seems to grow even thinner. It seemed that even the illusory image of the martial judge was about to lose control of the tiger about to be born. Chu Qing didn't care about this at all. He simply patted the black crow that was about to rush forward and calmly looked at the picture of a tiger descending the mountain. Even though Chu Qing had already discerned some of the murderous rules of this painting ghost from the deaths of the previous 5 people, bloodshot eyes still looked at this thing without any restraint, riding a tiger, a mysterious picture. Rank, 9th grade. Category, ghost in the paintings. Lifespan in the Underworld, 3 years, 7 months, and 3 days. Black tiger claws out the heart rules. Upon entering within 1 meter of the original painting, the participant will encounter the true form of the tiger and engage in an illusory battle. If the participant is no match for the tiger, they will die. If they defeat the tiger through human strength, they will have the opportunity to escape. Accomplice to the tiger ability. Allows a human who enters the black tiger's heart-piercing range to act as the tiger's accomplice. The ghost in the painting's status. The user cannot detach from the painting itself, but its daily lifespan consumption is halved. The painting cannot be destroyed by physical means. Promotion requirements unknown. Note what a ferocious thing, too bad it's still just a beast after all. Just as I expected. The rules of killing depicted by the tiger in this painting are extremely simple and easy to understand, and they can even be considered powerful. Compared to the yin god of wealth, they are much more intuitive, not to mention that this thing can also control its accomplices. If there are no unforeseen circumstances and the promotion difficulty isn't too harsh, this thing has a high chance of entering the ranks of the middle 3rd grade ghost king in the future. Good. Although he had eaten a bit too much, Chu Qing still nodded in satisfaction. He certainly wouldn't refuse such a potentially strange creature. Perfect timing, my room is indeed lacking some calligraphy and paintings. I can find a place to hang them up properly later. However, just as Chu Qing slowly walked away, Zhou Yingzhu finally came to her senses and looked at Chu Qing. Zio Chu, that thing is very fierce. It's full now, so you shouldn't go. Chu Qing didn't care. This woman hadn't come to terms with reality yet. That makes sense, though. As a follower controlled by this tiger-like monster, Zhou Yingzhu naturally knew and was familiar with its terror and ferocity. They don't understand themselves very well, So Chu Ching smiled slightly and without stopping said, "How do you know whether it's fiercer or I'm fiercer?" As soon as he finished speaking, he stopped and looked up. A man and a tiger stand facing each other. Life is like a bloodshot eye, an eye for an eye. A tiger has sharp claws and a black tiger will tear out the heart. Roar. The incredibly fierce tiger roar made Chu Ching's ears go numb. Suddenly, the tiger in the painting seemed to leap down from it. What a magnificent, ferocious tiger, just as described in the classic novel, a bloodied, naked body and red, bent legs and feet. Flame's sideburns were fluffy and his stiff eyebrows stood straight up. A mouthful of gleaming white steel teeth and a pair of gleaming golden eyes. With great spirit, he roared and shouted loudly. Such a ferocious tiger suddenly appeared before them. No wonder the 5 people from before couldn't even last 10 seconds. Even though Chu Ching knew that this was tiger-like yin energy condensed within his consciousness, he couldn't help but subconsciously take a half step back. This is the awe of apex predators ingrained in human genes, deeply ingrained in our very being. But soon those red eyes met those golden eyes head-on. The air seemed to freeze at that moment. He could sense that this Zhang Kui riding a tiger image was probably more powerful than the previous strange ones. Just how many lives did Zhou Yingzhu feed this painted ghost to allow it to grow to this level in such a short time? Feeling the weight of this rule's impact, this thing should be close to breaking through to the 8th rank, right? A breath had passed and the tiger pounced again in the next second. Although Chu Ching was surprised, he did not panic in the slightest. He quickly retreated, not trying to dodge but staring intently at his opponent with his red eyes. He even reached out and grabbed the cheek of that gaping, blood-red maw, and in the instant it lost its momentum, he suddenly brought his head close. That large, seemingly golden, gleaming copper bell eye was no more than 3 centimeters away from the sinister, black-red pupils. In that instant, the ferocity that Chu Ching unleashed was truly even more terrifying than that of the striped, vicious tiger. What made the blood-eyed dragon lord able to become one of the top ferocious gods in the Dragon Kingdom and even the world in his previous life? If at the same level, after the rules come into contact, the other party can still suppress the rules of Blood-Eye, then this blood-eyed dragon lord from the previous life might as well just jump into the Yellow River and commit suicide. Therefore, Chu Ching almost without hesitation charged forward. In an instant, a wisp of yin energy connected and controlled him. With a thought, countless wisps of yin energy swirled around him. The illusory, striped, ferocious tiger, right before his eyes, transformed into a phantom image and returned to the original painting. He kept his head up, maintaining the same posture. The painting of Zhang Kui riding a tiger still hangs quietly on the wall. Zhou Yingzhu, her mouth agape, stood frozen in place, then asked a question that Chu Ching hadn't expected. Has it started? She was a little scared. She feared that the next second, her voice would cause that figure to become a corpse, just like the 5 people before her. She feared that no matter what, her final fate would still remain unchanged. Then she saw Chu Ching slowly reach out and gently take down the painting that had become her nightmare, which was hanging on the wall, and then roll it up in her hand. Then that faint voice finally rang out, started. It's already over. Zhou Yingzhu blinked. The instant Chu Ching rolled up the painting, Zhou Yingzhu suddenly felt that the chilling aura that had been surrounding her had vanished. The ever-approaching shadow of death in her heart seemed to be gradually dispelled in that instant by that streak of crimson. She stared blankly at Chu Ching as he gradually turned around. Chu Ching ignored her shock, carefully put away the Zhang Kui riding a tiger painting, and then said, "Now you can answer the question I asked before." What problem? Zhou Yingzhu came to her senses. Gold. Chu Ching frowned slightly, then reached out and threw the black crow among the corpses on the ground. He could tell that the Zhang Kui riding a tiger painting could be dragged into the painting to devour the corpse. But since he had already intercepted it, he naturally wouldn't hesitate to let the black crow eat more. After all, this type of thing makes a living from this. Oh, I have it, I have gold, lots and lots of it. Zhou Yingzhu was indeed not lying to him, she really has a lot of gold here. Or rather, the prototype of the death apartment had already become the blood-stained eeriness of his tomb ghost, and the guidance of fate it brought did not deceive him. In the basement of Villa Number 2, in Zhou Yingzhu's splendid manor, the gold bars filled 2 small storage boxes. The estimated value is conservatively over 1 billion. Why would such a huge sum of money appear in Zhou Yingzhu's basement? Chu Ching didn't care about the mess behind it. He only focused on the nearly 2 tons of gold itself. As for the aftermath, since Zhou Yingzhu dared to bring Master Zhishan and the others here, and this wasn't the first time she'd done something like this, she clearly already had a plan to clean up the mess. Moreover, even the bone fragments had already entered the crow's stomach in this short time, so there seemed to be no other cleanup to do. Nearly 2 tons of gold may seem like a lot, but in reality, it could easily fit into a fairly standard suitcase. Gold has an extremely high density and a small volume, but it has a substantial weight. So, it was the crow's turn to put in the effort after it had eaten and drunk its fill. This black bird, which looked only slightly larger than a crow, actually lifted more than a ton of gold and then threw it into Chu Qing's taxi. This terrifying power left Zhou Yingzhu dumbfounded once again. Chu Qing got into the car with Yin Keishan, completely satisfied. Mr. Chu, could you please give me your contact information? Finally, Zhou Yingzhu, who had been completely bewildered from beginning to end, and who was no longer the Black Widow she had been before, couldn't help but speak up. Chu Qing thought about it for a moment, then gave it to her anyway. This woman has many connections. Putting aside everything else, guns are not something that just anyone can get their hands on in Daxia. It might come in handy someday. After exchanging contact information, Chu Qing slowly started the engine. Having regained her shrewdness and competence, Zhou Yingzhu quickly replied, "I'll go get someone to open the door for you." "Need not." Chu Qing spoke, and then to Zhou Yingzhu's astonishment, drove the taxi, number 40,004, straight towards the gate. Then the expected violent impact didn't happen. Instead, all that was heard was the blue and white taxi speeding away through the gate. Taxi number 40,004 sped along, reaching a speed of 400 kilometers per hour in just a few seconds. Now that he had enough gold, he couldn't wait to see what the Golden Shrine, the high-level tomb of the god of wealth created by the power of a corner of the Underworld, actually looked like. Zhou Yingzhu stood there, lost in thought. Only after the figure completely disappeared did she glance at Chu Qing on WeChat, which she had added. The account's profile picture was very simple, just a black background. As for that ID, Zhou Yingzhu memorized it after just one glance. Gravekeeper, shining with golden light. Although the color of gold and its opulent style are not appreciated by many people in this day and age. However, it must be said that having over a ton, nearly 2 tons of gold laid out before you is still quite eye-catching. Chu Qing sat in his security room, ignoring the pile of gold on the floor, and instead looked at the glass door, which was still predominantly dark red even in daylight. The moment Chu Qing stepped through the gate, his blood character ghostly aura reacted. Mission complete. The eerie riding tiger painting was found in the splendid manner and successfully added to the tomb. Guided by death, the blood demon gained 20 days of his remaining lifespan. Executor's quest reward, large amount of gold. Seeing the message written in blood, Chu Qing's lips curled up slightly, revealing a smile. The Scarlet Ghost is indeed the best choice for a grave ghost. Because at this very moment, his own lifespan has also increased by 20 days. Indeed, after becoming a tomb ghost, Chu Qing's symbiotic state gained another strange element. The amount of yin life consumed increased again, but as was expected, the yin life gained by the blood character ghost naturally merged with him as well. This is also the main reason why he can confidently say that the 100 days of lifespan consumed by the Golden Shrine are nothing. More importantly, the quality of lifespan gained from completing tasks guided by the Blood Demon's death guidance is comparable to that gained through Underworld professions. Of course, the quality of lifespan in this Underworld position refers to the quality of lifespan obtained by Chu Qing's origami doll in the previous life. As for the Tomb Keeper's posthumous duties and lifespan, Chu Qing has not yet tasted them, and their quality is still uncertain. The terrifying era had only been underway for less than a day, and he had only been a Tomb Keeper for half a day. He would only be able to receive his first yin lifespan when dawn broke the next day. I just wonder, how long will it take to accumulate enough yin life points to advance to the 8th rank? The 8th rank superior underworld position of the Tomb Keeper also has several options. However, regardless of which 8th rank underworld position he chooses for promotion, there are 2 rigid conditions that he, as the Tomb Keeper, cannot change. First, it requires a full 20 years of yin lifespan. Secondly, there are at least 5 tombs within the mausoleum. These are the 2 most basic requirements. However, having these 2 requirements does not guarantee a smooth promotion to the 8th rank. In fact, if it were that simple, the population wouldn't have dwindled to such an extent during the terrifying era of the previous life. Rapid advancement cannot fully absorb the power of the yin rank. If one quickly kills and steals 20 years of yin lifespan, and then directly seeks an advancement ceremony to begin the advancement, then there will only be one outcome. After becoming an 8th rank yin official, he was corrupted by the yin position and became a mentally deficient, inhuman and ghostly being like Huang Hong, ultimately becoming a true monster. To advance without any worries, one must naturally acquire more yin life points, but cannot rely too much on absorbing them through killing. More importantly, one needs to carefully play the role and experience the abilities and obligations of one's yin duty. Only in this way can one be promoted without any worries after fully absorbing the power of the underworld. However, this common sense was only summarized several years after the Reign of Terror. There are always some so-called ambitious individuals who, after meeting certain conditions and finding a way to advance to a higher-ranking position, can't wait to break through. In the end, they became a group of creatures that were neither human nor ghost. Thinking of this, Chu Qing came to her senses and finally turned her gaze to the gold she had brought back, a corner of the underworld. This skill allows the Gravekeeper profession to be cultivated in greater depth, ensuring that the Gravekeeper's potential and future will not only affect the ninth rank. Besides allowing the Tomb Guardian to gain more lifespan in the early stages more quickly, most importantly, it can enhance the potential for advancement within the tomb's eerie atmosphere. This alone makes the abilities of this corner of the underworld absolutely comparable to those gained through promotion to the highest 3 ranks of the underworld office. Thinking of this, Chu Qing slowly closed her eyes, sensing that wisp of power. He felt it again. At this moment, his entire consciousness was merged with the entire Bashan cemetery. I wouldn't dare say I have complete control over every single blade of grass and tree here, but this kind of observation is many times better than the naked eye. The next second, the box of gold that was originally on the ground seemed to be dragged up by a cold wind. Suddenly, he headed towards the yin god of wealth placed next to the counter. Clang. A crisp sound rang out as countless pieces of gold collided with the yin god of wealth. Then, surrounded by yin energy, these originally incredibly hard gold bricks were all transformed into molten gold. It was as if an invisible paintbrush was slowly drawing and carving a magnificent and resplendent shrine right before Chu Qing's eyes. It is entirely gold in color and about 1.78 meters tall. The center is hollowed out and decorated with various coin-shaped patterns. Below this niche are 2 small empty boxes that can be opened, and the exterior of these boxes is also exquisitely and beautifully carved. However, in ordinary statues of the god of wealth, the accompanying image is always a child holding money in his hands, symbolizing good fortune. But what is carved beneath this golden shrine are 5 little devils kneeling on the ground, each holding a gold ingot in their hands. Before Chu Qing could get a good look around, the moment the shrine stood still, the yin god of wealth, hovering in midair, seemed to receive a sudden summons and headed directly towards the very center of the golden shrine. With a thud, it stood heavily in the very center of the shrine. In that instant, Chu Qing sensed that the feeling he got from the god of wealth had changed. The yin god of wealth, positioned in the center, truly exudes a dignified and solemn aura. At this moment, Chu Qing clearly sensed that an abnormal yin energy was merging into the body of the yin god of wealth, along with the arrival of the golden shrine. An indescribable feeling arose from the god of wealth. Others may not know what this feeling represents, but Chu Qing knew that this meant the strange upward ladder had opened, and the yin god of wealth could now explore and develop his own method of advancement. Even he hadn't expected it. This thing was so fast. He suddenly looked at this most silent, most unassuming, and most inconspicuous of all the strange things he had been searching for, the yin god of wealth. Hidden between the 2 sides of the shrine, beneath its golden splendor, stands a completely black statue of the god of wealth, smiling as if looking down upon the kneeling believers and greedy beggars. That smile contained arrogance, sublimity, and an indescribable, indifferent divinity. Of course, beneath that surrounding yin energy, besides all that behind its smile, it also possesses cruelty, bloodshed, greed, and a sinister, monstrous aura hidden behind the malevolent energy. The god of wealth in the underworld. The yin aspect comes first, followed by wealth. Just as Chu Qing opened her eyes and carefully examined the object, a blood-red couplet slowly appeared on either side of the shrine where the god of wealth was placed in the center. First line, 100 taels of gold are needed to bring a smile to the god of wealth's face. The second line reads, 10,000 sheets of ghost money can stop Yama, the king of hell, from his tracks. Horizontal scroll. Wealth can move mountains. Unusual promotions also have many different channels and methods, and often they don't follow any particular pattern. Some people simply reached the required level of spiritual cultivation and were suddenly promoted. However, the strangeness of this kind of promotion means that the abilities and rules of killing will not change much. Instead, the main change is the strengthening of the weight, plus the appearance of some other secondary abilities. In addition to these, there are also those like Chu Qing's blood-written anomalies, which, besides requiring a certain lifespan, also require other conditions. The most important of these is the need to absorb certain other specific anomalies to become pieces of the puzzle for advancement. The strangeness of this kind of promotion lies not only in the significant improvement of one's own abilities, but also in the fact that one often gains unexpected enhancements along with those strange abilities that were used as puzzle pieces. Chu Qing didn't yet know what the promotion of the god of wealth would entail. After all, It's normal that you can't directly see through the promotion process since it's not a strange entity you control. Perhaps once the Blood Eye's grade advances further, we might be able to see it. As for now, it's clearly hopeless. However, even though he could see it, Chu Qing didn't have any other thoughts. Helping one of these creatures advance in rank might only benefit oneself by increasing one's daily lifespan while guarding the tomb. Besides, after advancing to the 8th rank, who knows if Blood Eyes and Blood Words will still be able to suppress it. Chu Qing would never do anything she wasn't sure of.